Again, my name is Dr. Brook. I'm the CEO and founder here of Everlasting Life. We've been in Prince George's County since, well, we started actually in Prince George's County in 1995. We came back in 2000 and have been here at this location since 2000. I don't want to ask who's here for the first time. I want to ask that question because all of y'all should have been here now. Right. It's not my show though. So tonight we're here to talk the future of Prince George's County. And we're here to talk about politics. We're here to talk about issues and concerns that we might have. And we've got the people who are going to be making the decisions on behalf of us in a couple of months. And hopefully you do have questions, and hopefully you're here to listen to everyone and to give everyone a fair opportunity to answer the questions that we have tonight. We thought this was a good idea, as this is kind of, Everlasting Life is kind of a community center. You know, if you've ever been here before, you know we'll have anything from jazz music to somebody coming up and speaking about health and wellness, to politics, to what do we have to do as a community to stop the violence in our community, to help strengthen our relationships. The list goes on of things that we do here. So we thought this would be a good place in order to bring the community to us, to see us, and also for us to get a chance to interact with you. Being a vegan is not as weird as it was 41 years ago when I became a vegan. Right. You'd be surprised how many people are eating vegan nowadays because they're realizing that they're losing weight, they're feeling better, they're having more energy. And so don't be a stranger, in other words. And tonight we're going to start by allowing the candidates for county executive to introduce themselves. And with that introduction, we ask that they tell us a little bit about themselves. And I guess what we can do is we can start right behind me with our beloved sister. We call people sisters and brothers here, so don't be offended. Our sister Donna Edwards. Thank you.
Well, thank you, my brother. And of course, this is not the first time I've been here, so it's good to be back. I'm Donna Edwards, and I thought this evening, because a lot of you are the same faces we've seen at all of these forums, I thought I'd tell you something about myself that you don't actually know. I have lived over in Oxon Hill for 35 years, you know that. But last year, I decided after I came out of Congress after 8.5 years, 5 terms, that I would get in an RV and drive across the country, which I did. 12,000 miles, 27 states, along the border of Texas, so I could see how ridiculous that border wall sounded. But one of the things that it did was that it gave me an opportunity to see big towns and small towns in the South and the West, and to really have the fullest appreciation for what we have here in Prince George's County. We have the diversity of people, of interest, of ages, of races and religions, of countries of origin. And so it allowed me to come back to reflect on the county that I've called home for 35 years in a really different kind of way. And that is why I decided to run for county executive. After 8 years in the Congress, and then, of course, spending time in the private sector, from nonprofit work in the domestic violence field. I founded the National Network to End Domestic Violence more than 25 years ago, which has borne the fruits of anti-domestic violence programs across the country and right here in Maryland. Working in the private sector at Lockheed, I started out as a writer, thinking that I was taking my English to do a little technical writing, then became an analyst and trained as a project engineer working on a little project called Space Lab, which was a laboratory that fit inside of the space shuttle. And the reason I share that with you is because it really frames the way I think about our county, the way I think about our opportunities for innovation to really participate in the 21st century, to educate our young people so that they can take full advantage of the opportunities of this century. And so that we can do development in a responsible kind of way so that we're empowering and engaging our small businesses, people who live here, create jobs here, and create opportunity and wealth right here in our county. And of course we have to do that by making sure that we have a transparent and accountable government that works for all of us. And so this evening, I hope we have another opportunity, as we've had many of them over the course of the last couple of months, to really discuss the future of Prince George's County, what it is that we see as our hopes, dreams, and aspirations, and whether we and our children will have the ability to take advantage of those, and making sure that people like my mom, who frankly I just left with my sisters, is able to age in place because she loves this community. And that my sisters can grow as well as they love this community. And so I'm excited to be here with you this evening in one of our amazing, beautiful small businesses. But we can have many more, and we do have many more like them all across the country, across the county. And I thank you very much for your attention this evening, and I look forward to answering your questions.
All right, Mr. Jerry Mathis.
Thank you, Dr.
Okay, good. Yeah, he's waiting for me to set the clock. Go ahead.
Okay, all right, very good. It looks like that I'll be here preaching to the choir. So they say you don't know what you don't know. So I'm just going to give you some things that maybe most of you all that I've seen your faces and know you're there and you're already with the candidate. I'm going to give you some food for thought. My name is Jerry Mathis, and give you a little story. I was teaching school in Anne Arundel County, history major. Love my black history, and this is one of the things that we as a people are missing. And that's why we keep going around in circles. But I was teaching school, bachelor, didn't have a lot of money. On weekends, I'd get me a pint of whatever was the cheapest. Because teachers didn't make a lot of money. But I came home one evening and I was looking at the TV. And on the screen, the hostages during the Iranian hostage taking was being marched across the TV in front of cameras blindfolded. I went to bed that night and I had an epiphany and a dream. And in that dream, I was jumping out of airplanes and I was in the military. Believe this, folks, this is what leaders do. I called the school that morning, told them that I was sick. I was, because I was dreaming about jumping out of airplanes. My cousin was a recruiter, and he was a silver medalist in the Olympics in boxing, but I called him and I said, Mooney, I said, I want to go in the military. And he thought that I was going off at 2 o'clock in the morning. And when he finally realized that I was serious, I met him down at AFES in Baltimore at 6 o'clock that morning. I took the test to get into the military. I took the test to go to officer candidate school, and by 7 o'clock that night, I raised my hand to be in the United States Army. Not only then, I'll tell you how God works. When they offered me a position, they wanted me to go to Germany because I had education. I said, no, I want to be in a combat arms unit, that when this war starts with Iran, that I want to be the first to go. Well, they said, we have a position down in Fort Bragg, North Carolina. I said, great. Combat arms. They said, there's only one problem. You have to jump out of airplanes. And my first thought, no, I'm not going to do that. But then I remembered the epiphany, I remembered the dream. And I went with it because I believe, I had faith that when you have these type of dreams, that they're real. And what I'm saying to you today is that I've had a dream also about this county turning around. And we got problems, folks. And these problems aren't going to solve themselves. You are the problem, because we're allowing people to take over our county, and this has been going on for years. And if we don't correct it now, it's going to be that way for the next 20 years. Thank you so much.
All right. Okay, all right, and we're keeping good with our time, so we really appreciate it. We're going to have Paul Monteiro.
Great, thank you very much for having me. Good evening. Paul Monteiro, candidate for county executive. I usually start with the biography that's not written. Second of 5 kids born to teenage parents. My dad immigrated from Jamaica, my mom from Palau, a small island in Micronesia. Met at McDonald's, had Make Love, kids showed up, bunch of kids, young parents. We were on welfare at different points. I was the free reduced lunch kid in the Prince George's County public school system. I'm a proud graduate of our public school system, Adelphi Elementary, Buck Lodge Middle, and High Point High School. Went on to University of Maryland for undergraduate school. Then wanted to go to law school, but was broke, so I had to work for a couple years as a paralegal, and then went to Howard University for law school. And then Barack Obama changed my life. I met him in 2006, started working for him in the Senate, moved to Chicago to work on his first campaign, leading up our religious outreach, because a lot of the attacks against him were rooted in his religion or his father, his pastor, his church, on top of the regular attack lines that Republicans throw at Democrats when it comes to the moral issues. And then I went to the White House staff for 5 years working on issues related to My Brother's Keeper, to address the crisis you have with black and brown boys and men in this country. We had a budget of almost $100 million, staff in 48 states. And then in the last year, the administration went over to the Justice Department to run the mediation program there. And most of our work that year was focusing on cities that were going up because of police-involved shootings, usually of black men. And then since last year, in June, I've been the chief of staff at Howard University. I'm running on education, economic development, restorative justice, and building a culture of stewardship in this county. County services are not favors we do for you. These are services you pay a pretty penny for. County contracts aren't gifts to give out to your friends. County grants aren't rewards. And we need a significant degree more of oversight and accountability in this county. I'm not running as the person who alone is going to fix it. I'm 37 years old. But having run 2 large federal programs and knowing there's no shortage of high caliber people in this county, I think the challenge here is going to be, how do we do this together? The 4 out of 5 Prince Georgians had skipped these elections usually. That many don't know what a county executive does. And so we've been going around the county the old-fashioned way, talking to people, explaining why this office is very much connected to their pocketbook or their wallet. One thing I would share that may be new, when I was the head of AmeriCorps Vista, if you were a person with a record, you couldn't serve in our program. If you were a dreamer, you couldn't serve in our program. We had an entire state that didn't have a single African American because of some well-intentioned but terrible results in terms of pushing out people of color. And by the end of my tenure as the head of AmeriCorps Vista, if you were a returning citizen, you could serve in our program. If you were a dreamer, you could serve in AmeriCorps Vista. We certainly saw the numbers of diverse candidates rise as we changed policies that have been in place for 50 years. So I'm very much running as somebody with fresh eyes, and I've lived here 36 of the 37 years of my life. I didn't move here to run. Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you very much. And now Ms. Angela Alsobrooks.
Good afternoon. I don't know if mine is working. Is it?
Yes.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to first say thank you to Dr. Baruch for hosting us tonight, and thank you also for your commitment to our community. Everlasting Life has been a real fixture in our community for many, many years now, and so I thank you for your commitment to this community. I also want to say thank you so much to everyone who has taken the time to come out tonight. I just especially want to say thank you so much to Team Alsobrooks, who came out tonight to support after a long day of canvassing, of talking to citizens. And what I am really grateful for is that we all share the same love for Prince George's County. I say this as well for the others who are seated here as candidates. We love Prince George's County, and what I think is so important to say is there is a lot to love about Prince George's. We hear very often what's wrong with this county, but I have to tell you that I have never been more confident than I am now about the future of this county. I believe in it. I believe in its people. I believe in our future. And I started here. I've been saying over and over again, I'm so proud that I am a native Prince George, and I have spent all 47 years of my life in this county. I know the people who are here. I know what they care about. I know what their concerns are. And it really has been my honor to serve you over the last 7.5 years as your elected state's attorney, and to serve the last 21 years in public service here in Prince George's County. My parents, who are here tonight, married young and started our lives here in Suitland, Maryland, followed by a time when we lived in Hillcrest Heights. They have lived in Camp Spring for the last 35 years. I've lived in various parts of this county as well, and so I know well the history of our county, and I know as well what the future will be. Since I have been in public service, starting in 1997, in May of 1997, started as a prosecutor in this county. I had an opportunity to work following that in the county executive's office as an education liaison, then appointed to the Revenue Authority of Prince George's County, where I had an opportunity to work for about 6 years, and came to understand so clearly the connection between crime, education, and business in Prince George's. What we know is that Prince George's County, the reputation that we had back in 2010 for crime and corruption was a real barrier to our county, prevented business investment, and we have now, 7.5 years later, seen a 50% decrease in crime. We've also seen a real focus now to education, the topic of education. We understand that the future of our county rests on how well we invest in our children. So going forward, we will do that, and not only invest in our children, but invest in the elders of our community, affordable housing, health care, businesses like Everlasting Life, which will help us to eliminate the food deserts in this county, and also to rebrand us. We are now the diabetes capital of the country. We have to change not only change the business climate here, but make sure that we're focusing on the people here who are here, investing in them and investing in their families. And I believe the best is yet to come. Thank you.
Great. Thank you to all of you. And we really appreciate your answers to your question and staying within the time. I'm going to go down a list of questions that I think reflect some of the questions that we may have in this audience, but it doesn't preclude you from asking your question. So we'll give you an opportunity to ask questions as well. I would like to start the evening with something that we're seeing happen. I actually was born in Washington, D.C., and I moved here to Prince George's County later on in life. And of course, the D.C. that I grew up in Southeast Anacostia area, is not the same. It's changing. And we're seeing the change take place in Washington, D.C. And I can expect that at some point that change is going to begin to impact Prince George's County. And I just wanted to hear from you what will we do to preserve the wealth and to preserve the hold that we have on Prince George's County as a community of people. It's not our desire to get moved further out. It's not our desire to lose our families' legacy homes. It's not our desire to lose this great wealth that we have amassed. We were at one time, and maybe still are, the most affluent African-American population in the United States of America. But we're watching and we're seeing what has taken place in D.C. What are we going to do to prevent that from happening here in Prince George's County? And let's start with Sister Angela Alsobrooks. And just go down the line.
Okay, thank you so much for the question. What's happened in Washington, D.C., there are a couple of things. One is affordable housing is a real issue. What we saw happen in the District of Columbia is that a lot of seniors lost their housing. This was attributable to the taxes on the houses that many of them just could no longer afford. So part of what we have to be really careful about going forward, especially as the county continues to grow, because what we know is that Prince George's County is the crown jewel of Maryland. We know that our home values have increased at rates that have really been magical in so many ways. We're leading the state, in fact, in terms of home value increases. We are now at an average of about 15 points. The state average is 6 points. So people are moving to Prince George's. What we have to do is to make sure we have smart policies in place, actually similar to what the district now has, to freeze those tax rates, to allow our seniors to stay in the homes that they have invested in. Make sure as well, one of the interesting concepts when we hear about what's happened in the District of Columbia is that sometimes the perception is that something was done to the people who were there. I think what we have to do is to make sure that we are true to our values. Our values as a community say that education is critically important, that every opportunity we expect for our children to have will be connected to the value and the nature of their education, making sure that they have a quality education, making sure that we do our work in terms of growing the workforce here, so that not only are we bringing businesses to Prince George's County, but we need to make sure that as they come, because our issue is not that businesses won't come to Prince George's. We have $10 billion worth of development that is coming to this county in the next 6 to 8 years. The real issue for Prince George's is to make sure that our children are in position to benefit from those opportunities. Meaning we have to invest in workforce development. We have to insist that the contracting opportunities will go to small, local, and minority businesses that are right here in Prince George's County, making sure that our business owners are prepared as well to take advantage of those opportunities, that they are well advertised, that businesses know what they are, and that they can forecast up to a year ahead of time so that they can prepare to bid for those business opportunities. So making sure that the wealth is here. Let me say one thing about wealth. Our school system, the performance and reputation, the improvement in our school system is going to be so important so that we will not continue to lose wealth. Every time our families send kids to private schools, can you imagine the economic power that we lose every year? I wish we could quantify how much money we lose when our families are sending their kids to private schools rather than sending them to the public schools right here in our county. So improving our school system is going to not only continue to increase the property values, but we must maintain the wealth and the economic power that we have in our communities. And part of that is going to be attached to making families feel confident again and sending their kids to our public schools. So we're going to make sure that we maintain the basics, education, business, keep crime low, and that way we're going to make sure that we maintain the integrity of the community that we love so much. I'm not concerned that we're going to experience anything negative related to the District of Columbia so long as we focus on making sure that we take care of home.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we are still the richest black majority county in America. And part of the reason I'm running, though, is that seeing this movie across the country, it's really two societies living side by side. In the richest black majority county in America, over 10% of the population is in poverty. And we can call it Ward 9, you can call it inside the Beltway, whatever you want to call it, but they're part of the county too. And that division, that income inequality is only growing. And the places we were dropping into at the Justice Department because usually something had gone wrong, you see it. That part of Baltimore where Freddie Gray lived, before you ever heard the name Freddie Gray, what would you find if you drove through a month before he was put in the back of that paddy wagon? Not much. Boarded up houses, containment schools, no retail, fast food is the only option, no jobs. And that every city has it, right? A lot of counties have it, and we have it too. So yes, we should celebrate the success and a lot of good on the horizon, but we have to focus on, as we look at, the nature of the world has changed. Folks want to move here, it's an attractive place to live, but are we displacing the people that have made this county what it is? Are we disparaging or pushing seniors out that have been a part of this and a pillar of this community for decades? And as you have this, I think specifically I would focus on a couple of things. Affordable housing, true affordable housing, because a lot of people throw that term around and it's affordable if you make 6 figures. But what about the person making $30,000 a year? And how are you intentionally building mixed income developments? The country made this mistake of building housing projects and concentrating the poor. And we know where that rainbow ends, in a really bad place for everybody. The best way forward is to say, we want people of mixed incomes living together. And transportation's another piece too. What good is a job if you can't get to it? And in this county, I mean, Uber is not an option for somebody making minimum wage. You're paying to get to work, and that's really it. And the bus system that we run in this county, with no weekend service, with very little evening service, I mean, it's literally called the bus. I mean, this is how basic can we get. You have to focus on people that don't have the privilege of a car. And there's a lot of those folks, and they're our neighbors too. I agree, education is a big part of it. And we have to get away from the stigma of workforce. I work at a university now, I'll be the first to say college isn't for everybody. My dad's a roofer, my brother's a plumber with Local 5. Sallie Mae's not calling them. And we need to say either we're going to work with these young people as they get a diploma, they're also certified in something, or starting their own business. We have no shortage of high caliber business owners around here, but we need to validate that as a pathway for our public school students to say, you have an idea, let's pair you up with mentors, let's show you a business plan, let's talk about the finance. So maybe you can start a firm or a clinic or a restaurant that'll create wealth and jobs for other people. And restorative justice is the last piece. I would just really focus on how are we giving a second chance to people that made mistakes and been accountable for their mistakes. Not hug a thug. I'm very serious about once you've done the time, welcome back. And because otherwise you just have this bigger universe of people that no one wants to rent to, nobody wants to hire.
I'm going to say some things that you may not like, but I'm not really concerned about that right now because I'm going on what Dr. Ruth said. When I grew up in the projects, we had community. And all the stuff you get every 4 years from the politicians telling you what the answer is. You have to take responsibility for your own destructive behavior. And that behavior is every 4 years, you elect the same managers, not leaders, to manage the plantation that the white folks down at the state capitol control. Now what we have to do is recreate the community. Less than 1%, and I'm a businessman, I've owned Mathis Realtors for the last 27 years. At one time, because I'm semi-retired, was the largest minority real estate company in Prince George's County. But I came out of DC too, and I have, folks, I own property in DC. I see what's happening. Now I make money out of what's happening, the gentrification. But as Dr. Ruth said, it's coming here, because the first thing, whenever you go into genocide, which is happening there, You have to find a place to put the people. And this Prince George's County is where where everything is being sent. The group homes, the prisons, everything. If we don't control our own resources, don't talk to me about education. We've had 7, 8 superintendents in 14 years. That's 2 years apiece. We pay more per pupil than any other jurisdiction in Maryland, yet we're at the bottom of the barrel. So is it really the money? No, it isn't. It's the people you allow. Like Carter G. Woodson said, we give up the most precious commodity or possession we have, our children, to let somebody else dictate how they learn. And you're going to come back to us 4 more years with all the rhetoric, because politicians don't know what they don't know, and they don't see what they don't understand. I understand it, folks. Nobody gave me any money to build my business. My wife and I worked hard, we sacrificed, but we built that business not on somebody giving us something, because here in Prince George's County, we own it, folks. This could be the next Rosewood, but we have to control our resources. We have to control our education system. We have to control our taxes, and we got to stop being bamboozled and tricked by these, leadership is a lost art. Wayne Curry and I were very close friends, and everything I learned and what I saw it with him, and I learned it from him. And folks, we're sliding down a slippery scale. And since I'm preaching to the choir, this is why I'm telling you not about me and what I'm going to do. I've done it. While everybody talking about what they're going to do, I've been out there doing it for you.
Thank you. Thank you. I think this is a really important question for us, both about how we retain our wealth, but also about how we grow our wealth. And I truly do believe that a rising tide lifts all boats. Now, you've heard politicians say that in the past, and so the question is, what do we need to do to invest in that rising tide? I think it begins with making an investment, a real investment in education, starting with the budget that we have. We have about a $2 billion budget for our school system. It represents a little over 60% of our overall budget. And we're spending it in all the wrong ways. We're spending it at the top of the ledger in our system, and we should be spending it in the classrooms. We're going to have to pay teachers more, have more teachers, and fewer children in those classrooms so that they can learn. And the reason that I stay focused on education, as the other, my colleagues here on the panel have said, is because when people are enabled to get a quality education and they can go off from high school into a community college, into a vocational or training program, apprenticeship program, into one of the trades, or onto a 4-year institution, it automatically increases their wealth, which of course for us here in Prince George's County, that means it also expands our tax base. And so this is no small task. And although it is true that we've had multiple superintendents over a period of time, I think that leadership of that system really does matter. And the fact is that around the country, superintendents, the average tenure is actually about 3 years. And so we're not so outside of the norm. But we do have to have more teachers teaching fewer students in classrooms. And we have to give them the tools for the 21st century. And one child just a few days ago, he said, why is it that I get an iPad in my classroom, but my sister does not? So we have to clear those inequities across the school system. And then we have to focus on things like mixed income housing, because when you have mixed incomes of housing, you actually have greater, healthier communities and stronger communities. Building around our transportation infrastructure, which we have a lot of transportation infrastructure, but we haven't really developed fully around that infrastructure so that it really supports our needs. And of course, having a business climate that is conducive to local procurement, local hiring, and of course local contracting, so that we create jobs and opportunities for people who are here in Prince George's County. And I couldn't close this conversation without saying that we need to raise the minimum wage. I believe in a $15 an hour minimum wage. I think that that is tough for much smaller employers, and so we should think about how we scale that up. But we have to give people a wage that where they can take care of their families and meet their responsibilities without relying on government. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We're going to move to allowing the audience to ask questions, but I do have one question I want to ask, and this has to do with health. As was stated by someone here, the quality of health and quality of life of those of us here in Prince George's County is, I think it's the second worst. I think Baltimore is the worst. And it's really bad in Prince George's County. And as was stated, you have the richest, and then you have those of us that are challenged financially. But believe it or not, we're sick on both sides of that scale. We're sick, those of us outside the Beltway are sick with the same diseases. We just get better, maybe access to resources, I'm not sure. But what is it that we are going to do to begin to change the paradigm with regard to the health and what is being put in our communities and we're being told is food? Prince George's County is inundated and overwhelmed with what I call bad for you food restaurants. We're inundated with them. And these are the things that are the institutions that are being marketed to us. I know you as a county executive, you want to bring more business, but at some point smart growth has to be smart not only for our pockets, but it has to be also smart for our people. And what kind of smart growth as we're building around the metro stations and we're looking to give people bigger opportunities to grow their business. And I would love to say that I could have all my employees make $15 an hour. I can't do that today. I could if we could figure out how to get this thing maybe working right. And I need your help. So what is it that you will do in order to help businesses that and our community, do better with regard to our health and well-being?
Yes. Mr. Monteiro. Okay, Mr. Monteiro.
All right. Yeah, with the healthcare conversation, that's a big issue. Even at Howard, we see this at our hospital. Most of our census and the people that use the services at Howard Hospital are coming from east of the river. So they have to take a couple of buses or trains to even get there. So access has to be a big focus. In a county this big, what good is a great new regional medical center if you don't have a car or you don't have easy access to get to it? And mental health has to be a big part of that as well. And you're seeing this around the county for sure. I mean, there was an article in the Post a couple of weeks ago about 7 or 8 students cutting themselves at William Park Elementary School. And that school is, a lot of the issues of low-income population, high immigrant concentration. We need to have more social workers and other supports in our public school system because these young people are seeing some things that require that, and they probably don't have access to even a primary physician, much less a counselor or anything. And I do think you touched on the piece about we're quick to chase a Burger King. And it's like, what type of companies are we incentivizing to even come here? I mean, how many fast food chains do we get? Because those jobs, even working there, I like Chipotle as much as the next person, but you can't live off Chipotle wages in this county. And you have the other, on the health side, you're impacting in a negative way the public health of this county. And as much as we talk about hunger generally, where hunger rates have gone down generally in the DMV the last couple of years, they've actually gone up in parts of Prince George's County. Because they're food deserts. And there's no, think about you're putting children or seniors in a position where they have to take a couple buses to even get to a grocery store, or they don't even have a healthy option. And certainly a health desert. We are undercovered in terms of, just access and enough professionals to be where the people are in terms of providing those basic services. And I think a number of folks have mentioned just the state of our health department in this county. I'll leave it there.
All right, great. All right, Ms. Alsobrooks.
I don't know why I keep threatening to knock over this water. I'm sorry about that.
It's okay.
So this is an issue that has been so much concern to me. The whole issue around health deserts, food deserts is a huge one for us. I think there are a couple of issues. One is I think about two different quotes. One is something my father told me as a kid, and he always said, "We know more than we understand," and that's the problem with people. And I think that's so true here in the county. When we talk about the health crisis that we're facing, it's not an issue that is specific to poor people. This is an issue that unfortunately has been impacting citizens all across our county. I think the food desert issue is a huge one, including not having the groceries that we need, not having restaurants like this one in our county. So when we think about the diabetes that has affected us as a county, it really is in no small part to the fact that we really have not had the kinds of quality foods and fresh foods that we need. I think there are a couple of ways to address it. The most impactful way we have is through small, local, and community-based businesses. We will do that by redeveloping many of the strip malls and shopping centers that we have in this county that for years you have looked at and just wondered what in the world happened. I can think about Allentown Road, for example. If you drive down Allentown Road, you pass Burger King, a Wendy's, Subway. It is so ridiculous that in so many instances, the most healthy thing you can find is a Subway restaurant. So we have to make sure that we are not only developing. What we must do is to redevelop and revitalize many of the shopping areas that we have in the county, and to do that by incentivizing small, local, and minority businesses to invest in those shopping areas, to provide whatever help and support we can from the government, whether that is lending, training for their employees, whatever incentives we can provide for people to hire locally. So that would be one of the areas we can work with. Veterans also, we have the largest number of veterans in the state. I'd love to see us have a program similar to the one in Virginia that's called Veterans to Farmers, where we can have food, have the farmers markets throughout the county, making sure that we're able to serve people in that way. One of the other areas that I think has been a real blind spot for us is mental illness. I don't think there's any way to underestimate the impact of mental illness and the fact that we have not invested properly in it. What we see as a result of mental illness is not only are we seeing the metabolic illnesses, but we're seeing a good number of other stress-related illnesses, and it comes from the fact that we have been too ashamed and that there's so much stigma attached to mental illness, that so many in our community are suffering from mental illness. And so we need to, in a very preventive way, address mental illness. The question is, we very often say, what's wrong with a person? We never say what happened. That is the question we must begin to ask ourselves as a community. It's not just what's wrong. It's children in our school system, but I think much of it is connected to mental illness. It leads to the substance abuse that we see that also has gone ignored here, the addictions that are taking over our community, and they have very negative health implications. So it is food deserts, mental illness, addictions. These are the places that we must focus in order to increase the health indicators.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead. You can answer.
Okay. Folks, when I talk, it might sound angry. Somebody told me that, but it's passion. I've been in this county for a very long time. And when a lot of you all were asleep getting ready for work the next day, I was sitting around trying to think of what can I do to not change the county, but to change the mindset of the voters who keep putting us in this position. So when we talk about health, and as many of you may have heard me say, the Bible says a child shall lead the way. When you are a controlled people, the controllers, their intention is to keep you needy and keep you sick, keep your kids uneducated, because then they can give you the welfare you need to keep you from being self-sufficient. Right now, they closed DC General in DC, and that was putting a big burden on Prince George's Community Hospital. I'm gonna come back to folks, when we think about history, in Rosewood, and before integration, when it was segregated, we were forced to work with each other, to have our own communities. We had no problems with health. We had no problems with resources. We had no problems with education. When we worked together, now again, and I'm gonna keep coming back to this, we don't control this county.
Thank you.
We don't control the resources of this county. But folks, there is a way. I mean, I've been fighting. I fought Mike Miller. I've gotten bills passed, and I'm not even in office. And I get so tired of being in the vineyards and then hear you all ask the same questions over and over, and then hear the wannabe elected officials tell you the same answers. The problem is you go for it every time. And then they give you these so-called official Democratic ballots. And in there they check everybody they want you to vote for. And you take that ballot to the ballot box and you follow exactly what they did. Deja vu. They just put more people that they can control We have to control our communities, folks. Sickness is something that we can control. There's so much money flowing through this county, folks. We can take control of that. We can take control of education. Now, I might be giving you an overarching view, but I've seen this happen, and I know it can happen. But if you keep listening to the same old mantra, I'm going to do this, and we going to do that, and we going to do this, and then you fall for it. You fall for the trickery. And all I can say to you folks, this is not just Jerry Mathis talking to you. This is Jerry Mathis who've gotten bills passed, who stopped the soccer stadium almost single-handedly because once again they were getting ready to take our tax dollars and send it out to Montgomery. The money was going to go to Montgomery County. But thank you.
All right, great.
When I was in Congress, I actually authored a report on healthcare disparities. And not surprisingly, Dr. Baruch, you can identify with this, that here in Prince George's County, the problem was not about income. In some areas of the country, income is a direct corollary to the disparities that we see. But we don't have that problem here in Prince George's County. So we have to look at what other things might be impacted. We have the highest negative indicators for heart disease, diabetes, kidney disease, hypertension, infant mortality, maternal mortality, obesity. I'm sure I've left something out. Higher than the national average, higher than the average in the state of Maryland on every single one of these negative health indicators. And so we have to look at our entire healthcare system, in addition to where it is that people are eating, how we educate people about what is good nutrition. And I think that we have an opportunity with the incoming Prince George's Regional Medical Facility to be able to rethink our healthcare delivery system. Sure, we'll have one big building, but we need to make sure that we have expansive community-based health services all throughout this county, including nutrition services. I agree with what some of my colleagues have said here about the need for mental and behavioral services, particularly pediatric mental health and behavioral health, which we actually can do through the insurance system, reimbursed into the school system the way that Montgomery County does, the way that Fairfax County does as well, so that we can provide that through all of the 208 schools in our system. And markets for fresh fruits and vegetables. Very sadly, I was actually at the Washington Area Food Bank and a couple of our area food banks that get food supplies from the bank, and while it's true they get some fresh fruits and vegetables, they get an awful lot of canned and boxed foods that's high in sodium and high in all kinds of additives that are in fact unhealthy, unhealthful for people. And we need to make sure that we have a robust public health service that addresses needs, particularly of some of our seniors and our low-income families. And then, of course, we have to take a look at the way we do development. Frankly, the reason that there is a McDonald's here and a Burger King there and a Subway there is because our development approval has actually allowed that to happen, and it's time for Prince George's County, for us as elected officials, to own the development process and stop letting developers tell us where they want things and let us tell them the kinds of things that we want built around our transportation infrastructure, and making sure that we're adding in the value of healthy and local food supply.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you to all of you. I have one more question, and it has to do with development, and that is, we saw what happened at the casino, with the casino in Prince George's County, and I don't know whether that's good or bad. I don't gamble, and I don't normally go to that side of town. I know that there was a lot committed from the casino to go towards education in Prince George's County. Probably some other institutions or elements in the county were supposed to benefit from the advent of the casino there. And I know it's a tough road. As a politician, this probably is not the audience of people, and I could be wrong, don't be offended, that's gonna write you the $50,000 check tonight. This is probably not the audience, but we still are here. We're the citizens of this county, and we expect you to represent us, and we expect you to protect us. And it's a fine line, because that other person that's gonna give you the you know, whatever $500,000 and promise a whole lot to you, it's going to be tough for you to listen to our little voices,
Right.
you know. But our goal is to be heard as well, and we want you to represent us as the county executive. So how do you plan on, you know, I guess, hearing our voices and allowing us to be heard, and then responding to us as a community of not the $500 million check writers. Right. And let's start back with you, Donna Edwards.
Well, I think as most of the people in this room know, that in this campaign, while it has been tough, I haven't taken a single dime from developers. And it's not because I don't believe in economic development. I just don't think that developers should be contributing to candidates who then have to make decisions about where development goes and frankly, who it impacts. And I think that for too long in this county, our destiny has frankly been determined by people outside of the county doing things to us. Now, while some of that has resulted in, you know, great jobs and opportunity, I think one of the things that I see around this county is a lot of scattershot development. Good stuff, but scattershot. Meaning that we haven't concentrated our development around our transportation infrastructure. Even the new Center for Immigration Services that's going over at around Branch Avenue, I think it's really important. I actually created the legislation that enabled that to happen because I believe in investing around our transportation infrastructure. With respect to MGM and developments like that, I believe the developers need to pay the impact fees, all of the impact fees, so that we can invest in our schools and our social services and continue to invest in our roads and our transportation. And frankly, when development happens and those fees are waived or tax abatements are given for decades at a time, it means that we then have to place all of our reliance on property tax owners to contribute to the things that result in the public good. And so we should begin to be in control of development, where it goes, who it impacts, and I want the people of Prince George's County and neighborhoods and communities to have a say about that, developing effective community benefits agreements that are enforceable, making sure that we have project labor agreements on projects so that when the work is done, prevailing wages are paid so that the people who do that work and, you know, hired locally, that those people actually have the ability to take care of themselves and their families. And so we're at a time now where we don't have to beg anybody to come and develop in Prince George's County. If you look around the Beltway and in this region, every place else is built out. There's no place else for them to go, and we are an attractive investment, and we should treat ourselves like that instead of having developers throw things here and there and all of the scattershot that happens across the county. And so part of the reason that I've decided in this campaign that I am not taking any developer money, and you can ask other candidates on this panel whether they've taken developer money, is because I believe that it's important for us to be in control of our destiny. And I plan as county executive to make sure that that is true.
Hey, one second. We're not having that, please. Go ahead, Ms. Evans, I'll give you some more time. Go ahead.
No, I'm finished. Thank you.
We're not having that moaning and booing or whatever. We're not having that.
Yes, sir.
First of all, Wayne Curry had appointed me to Commission 2000, which was the chartered growth of this county. And folks, you know, we elect these officials who are beholden to the Democratic Party and not to the black community. And you as a voting public, you vote 98% Democrat. And I've had one person say to me, it doesn't matter who it is as long as they're a Democrat. Well, folks, I'm a Republican. But I've been a Democrat for probably longer than a lot of you all, for 47 years. I fought in the Democratic Party for you. When National Harbor came about, I threatened to sue Prince George's County because black folks were coming to me saying that they weren't getting contracts. And then when they got the contracts, the white overseers were changing orders on them, and therefore, because they had to get bonding, then they needed money to get started, they were dropping out. I wrote the white paper, and because I threatened to sue the council, and the council they instituted a bill that's almost exactly verbatim of what I wrote. One of the things you don't know is that when National Harbor started, the county, Milt Peterson it was going to be 2,700 parking spaces. The county was going to get $5 per parking space. Milt Peterson was going to get $10. My group wrote a letter of intent. This is how you gain your community back. And I told Milt Peterson, I said to Milt Peterson, give me and my organization $5 of your $10. We will take that money, take it up to New York on Wall Street, and we will bond our own contractors. We will give them money to get started on National Harbor, and then when they are successful, they can put back into the fund so we can keep doing that. When we came to MGM, I just got tired, folks. My wife told me not to say this, but I got tired, and I did not do anything with National. I just wanted to see, were you going to listen again to the trickery? And you did. They said that they were going to put the money in education focus, not going there in the right places where it needs to be. And they got you on building another level, whereas you were going to make more money on slots, and they would make more money on table games. So now, because nobody was watching, they're going to put all table games upstairs. That's going to take money from you because they have decreased the slots. Come on, folks. We need thinkers. We need real leaders, not managers. Managers, you can get them a dime a dozen. What I'm saying to you is you need leadership like me that always is looking at how I can build our community. And I don't mind fighting back, folks. You know, God has blessed me. To whom much is given, much is required. And I've been very blessed. I have put a lot of my money into helping this county. So, and I don't take nothing for granted when it comes to you.
Mr. Monteiro.
So last January, the County Council appointed a commission, a Blue Ribbon Commission, to come up with a prescription for what's wrong with the schools. And if you read that report, before it gets into any like specific policy issues, it says the #1 problem in Prince George's County is public distrust of government. For all the reasons I think everyone in this room knows, there have been some stunning lack of integrity examples at different points in our county's not too distant past, and a couple weeks ago as well. The MGM is another example of that. It was sold as A, we got B. Milestone Communication, a cell phone tower company that builds cell phone towers on school property, got a no-bid contract, and we exempted them from zoning. So parents don't even know a cell phone tower is being built on their kid's campus until it's being built on their kid's campus. And that's the sort of thing that has added to this sense of, I don't believe what you say. And we can talk about like little voices in this conversation. It's a little majority. Like most people out here, as we go around talking to folks, they simply want to know, can I reach you if I put you in that spot? Because they can't reach people that, because now it's easy to be in your face. I need your vote, maybe some money would help. But the day after the primary, are we going to be in your face? A month after the primary, a month after the general, and that's what I look forward to. Some of the folks in this room I worked with when I was at the White House and at AmeriCorps Vista and at DOJ. And I think, my record speaks for itself in the sense of, I know who I work for. I'm not up here, I haven't had all these jobs to run around saying, aren't I special? I work for Barack Obama. No, God has been good to me. I'm the first in my family to get out of high school. It's not because I'm smart. It's not because I work hard. It's because God has blessed me. And I would say, I look forward to being that person that rolls up my sleeves, gets in your face in a respectful way to say, how are we going to do this? Because this is your money. This is your government. And for, I think, far too long, we've become accustomed to almost like a second-class level of customer service in this county. And if you want to quibble with me, call 311 and see how long it takes to get county services to your house. Bulk trash collection, dead tree falling on your power lines. Can somebody please cut the grass? Look at how much money you're putting in, and I'm just saying part of, hopefully my appeal to you, is that we have to stop running this county like somebody's club. You're paying a pretty penny for these services you're entitled to. And there's a lot of money in the system. Why does that firm always get the contract? Why does that person even get hired who's not even qualified for the job? Why do I not even hear back when I put a bid in for county work? I just hear crickets. I don't even get a no. And that's the sort of unlevel playing field that we've developed a reputation for. And I'm not running to beat up on Prince George's County. Prince George's County was good to me and my family, and I'm not leaving. I'm simply saying, as a person speaking the truth in love, 2018 has to be different. It has to be different.
Great. Thank you. Ms. Alsobrooks.
So I'm going to speak some truth as well. And the truth is, first of all, the people in this room are intelligent people. The people in this county are intelligent people, and I think some of us are a little frustrated with the demeaning way that people are spoken to. Nobody here is stupid. Nobody needs to be preached to, but the truth is we also need the hypocrisy to end. I don't care how much you care about a candidate, no matter how much you think. We have campaign finance laws in this county. It's impossible to give $50,000 to any candidate. Nobody, no matter how much you believe in them, can give more than $6,000 per candidate. It's all a matter of public record. So if a person chooses to donate to a candidate, that's a matter of public record. Everybody can see it. The only entity that is able to give more than $6,000 is a super PAC, like the one that funds Ms. Edwards' campaign. $616,000 in 2 months. Now ask yourself, who gives $660,000 in 2 months? They do not do it out of the goodness of their heart. What is it that they want? And the people who registered this super PAC, the We Are Prince Georgians, who don't live in Prince George's County, who are registered in Virginia, let's ask ourselves what it is they really want. It is not out of the goodness of their hearts. It is not because they are working families, because the truth of it is 18 labor unions have endorsed me, 15 of them in that AFL-CIO out of 20 have endorsed my campaign. And so the lie is that somehow the developers are the nasty entity in this campaign. The truth of the matter is none of them can give more than $6,000. I don't care what they think. But the people who have funded Ms. Edwards gives $150,000 a pop to send nasty, evil, slanderous lies into our community to create fear. And really, the truth of the matter is the only reason that these nasty lies have been put into people's mailboxes that have been demeaning and slanderous is to detract away from the fact that what we really should care about in this election is a record. What did you do with the last job you had? Were you successful? Did you deliver? What did you do when the Prince George was trusting you? So that's the kind of trust that we really need, is to be able to elect people that when they go, so some of us are tired of the talk. Talk is, the same person who stood on a bridge with a picket sign picketing MGM and National Harbor, then moved in the moment it was built. Let's not lie to people.
I'm not going to take that, Ms. Alsobrooks. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to tell you what to take. No. I am not going to have my name, your name over. I did not use your name when I did.
Settle down, please. Let's get order.
Absolutely did not.
Can we get order?
I'm going to respond to
Yeah, well, I'm going to give you a chance to respond.
And another thing, I know a whole lot of y'all came here with candidates, but the clapping, the booing, and the booing, keep it down. Because there's some people that came in, there's regular people that come to the restaurant, don't know who they want to vote for. Just because y'all know who y'all want to vote for, we don't need y'all clapping us up trying to influence other people. Stop.
Absolutely.
Well, you know what, so don't talk about a name when you allow somebody to mail out something calling a person a criminal. I have represented this county with dignity and integrity for the last 21 years, and so it is high time that the record is clear, that the whole notion of accepting quote-unquote cash from someone when we have campaign finance laws to clearly denote what people accept, it is ridiculous. And so the truth needs to be told, and I think that this is a disgraceful thing to continue to create the impression that a crime has been committed when it is not.
Ms. Edwards.
First of all, let me say that my campaign's name is Donna for Prince George's. And I live in Prince George's County, and I have loved this county. To the extent that anything has been sent out, the fact is that if you look at the campaign finance reports, I'm not the one who's gotten money from Clark Construction and Michael Companies and the Peterson Companies and every real estate broker that represents them and every lawyer that represents them. Ms. Alsobrooks is the one who's received that, and you can go check it out for yourself. It's over $300,000, nearly, actually combined, when you look at the lawyers, the real estate brokers, the family members, and the companies combined is nearly $500,000. I didn't make those numbers up. Those numbers are on the campaign finance reports, and you all are welcome to go and take a look at them. And as to National Harbor, you're right, I lived in Oxon Hill, Maryland for 35 years. And when I saw that development going up and they told us that it was going to be Disney World, I joined with members in our community and said, we don't want Disney World in our neighborhood. And then I organized that community and made sure that it became an amenity, so that the hotels and restaurants were an amenity to the community, so that the hiking and biking path were part of that project, so that the roads along the way could accommodate bicycles and walkers, our senior citizens and our children who walk to Fort Foote Elementary School, because that's the community I lived in. I didn't wait to get appointed to one job and then appointed to another job and then chosen to run for state's attorney. I worked in my community, I labored in my community, and yes, I do live at National Harbor, no question about it. I helped to get the residents there that are actually contributing to the tax base here in Prince George's County. I sold my home just down the road where I raised my son, who's now 29 years old, and I decided I didn't want to live in a house anymore. I wanted to live in a condo, and that's where I live. Not because I got any benefit from it, not because anybody forced me to live there, or because I did it for myself, but because I feel proud of the work that we did to bring high-wage jobs to National Harbor. Part of the lawsuit when I sued National Harbor was so that they would hire union jobs down at the Gaylord, and then those jobs have spread through the whole community. And so I'm proud of that, because it means that the people who wait tables and make the beds at National Harbor actually make a decent wage so that they can take care of themselves and their families. And so you're welcome to visit me at the National Harbor that I helped create, and yes, I stood with a sign on the side of the road picketing so that they would do the right thing for our community. And as hard as I fought for National Harbor in our community and for it to be the kind of development that we could be proud of, I will fight for you every single day here in Prince George's County.
Because we gave Ms. Mathis 3 minutes to rebut off it, does anybody else want to rebut?
Yeah, so I'd like to...
Wait a minute, you've had yours.
No, but this was specifically about...
So what are we going to do, go back?
No,
Okay, but we'll decide it here, so.
But because we let her rebut, we have to give y'all equal time to rebut if y'all want.
Thank you. So I think
You'll have a chance to speak.
Yeah. So I think it's important to understand something that was said, and it was said that developers, lawyers, business people contributed $300,000. I'm not sure that's the number, but the truth is, it's important to understand that my campaign has raised $1.6 million. So the dollars that are spoken about here, and it is an amazing thing. It really is. I ought to give God credit for it, because the truth of it, it is the highest amount raised in the state of Maryland. We have never had a county executive candidate, and that's attributable to the people who are in this room. And in our county, we have raised money from nearly 5,000 donors. That's unheard of. 80% of them are Prince Georgians. So the people of this county have a lot of confidence in me. They have a lot of confidence in this campaign. I'm so grateful for it. Like I said, 5,000 contributions, so $300,000 compared to $1.6 million is about right to have business owners who invest in Prince George's County, who want to have a say in our election, who are investing in the business community here. But the truth of the matter is the vast majority of the contributors are people who live here. And there is a contrast to build here, because my opponents' contributions have largely come from out of the state. Check that report out. Only 8.5% of the contributions from her campaign have come from people in Prince George's County. If you check the report, it will say Oregon and Texas and California and that kind of thing. I think it's important to be supported by the people who live, work, and invest in this community. That is appropriate. And at a time where one of the things I hear from Prince George's more than anything is that they desire the amenities that they deserve. To have places, decent places to shop, decent places to dine in with their family members. And those things happen because we have a leader who has the authority to walk into a room with any person, be it a person who lived next door to me when I was 5 who contributed money, the labor unions, those who are contributing as business owners. We need to have a person who can work with people they agree with and people that they don't. I have that quality. That is one of the things I think that distinguishes me from a lot of people in this race, is that you can't just work with people you agree with. You have to be able to have your integrity intact. No one's ever questioned my integrity. I have an unblemished record. I've worked at your state as your state's attorney. The FOP endorsed me in 2010, and when it was necessary, it never stopped me from prosecuting them. But doing so with integrity and fairness and openness is important. So I have never had my integrity compromised. I did not have it compromised as your state's attorney, and I would never have it compromised as county executive, nor would I ever tolerate an environment where anything like that happens. So that is the truth of it. Is at $1.6 million. I'm proud of the money that we've raised, because guess what? Anyone who's ever raised money knows it takes discipline to raise money. It takes hard work to raise money, and we have done so, but we have done so with the help and support of the people who live in this county, and that is something that I'm grateful for and very, very proud that we worked hard enough to be able to earn the support of the people who live here.
Mr. Mathis, did you have a rebuttal?
Yes. You know, one of these people has to meet me in the gym. I would say I don't have a dog in this fight, but I do. I listen to this stuff, and I listen to you all clap, and you know, the most popular person, and who got the most money. You know, if you can control, I'm self-funding mine right now, but if I really wanted developers' money, this wouldn't be the conversation, because nobody controls me when I love this county. I don't care how much you give me. You can't control it, because I'm going to draw a line when you come into Prince George's County. And that line says, what are you going to give us? I'll take your money, but what do we get? And this is what I'm going to give you. We've never had that before. Wayne Curry was the last one to do it. Then everything brick by brick has been dismantled. And you get these folks, you know, to hear somebody say that accusing somebody of something is evil. Folks, that's politics. It's been like that in this case. All of a sudden it's evil. And it's the same, yeah it is, but it's the same thing you've been voting for the last 30 years. I can show you everything that was said all the way back to 1988, folks. You want to know? You want to know, is it evil? These are the same lies, the same trickery, the same trick. They haven't even changed how they trick you. It's the same thing, folks. This is 2006, 1998, 2013. These are the ballots, the exact same things that you fall for. So the rhetoric is, I didn't take money. I did take money. It came from out the state. You're losing your focus, folks. You're losing your focus. And I can say this because, again, they got to come by me in the general. So I'm going to speak truth to power. I'm not going to get caught up in this hype that I see. And you ought to be ashamed, Prince Georgians, and I'll say this, and like I say, you may not like me when I say it, but you are the most affluent, highly educated county in the whole United States that's 77% black. And you ought to be ashamed because people look down on you to say, you are that and you can't rise above? That you have all these ills and all these problems, and that every 4 years you're coming back asking for the same exact thing because you keep listening to the rhetoric instead of reading and really looking into what really is the case, what really is the things you should be looking at. Stop looking at these ballots where this is control, folks. This is where they get you, they mail it to you, then they check on the inside who they want you to vote for, and because your senator is on the front, you go to the ballot box, and you just did exactly what you kept the plantation running. Okay? So all I'm saying to you is it's time for you to affirm yourself. Stop looking for somebody to take you out of the doldrums. This county can rise, but we need you to think. We need you to rise. And then we as a county with leaders, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Monteiro.
Can we go to audience questions, please?
Next question. All right, we're going to take questions from the audience. Please state your name first and then ask your question.
Haru Goodrich, the question I have concerning the economic development of the county, besides the wage earners and the kind of developers, what are the long-term, multi-generation things you have to actually have the people of Prince George's County take ownership in terms of becoming developers as well as industry development? Because one of the things I noticed, nobody's focusing on the intergenerational cognitive development capital of the population as a whole, so they become the wealth generators instead of becoming the wage earners?
Good question.
Yes.
Here and your mic.
Did y'all hear this question?
Yeah.
Some folks were saying they couldn't hear the question there.
Speaking to the mic.
The question I have, when you talk about economic development and developers come to the county with developing the county itself, the question I have, at what point are we going to transition to the point where the populace of Prince George's County are actually the developers, the owners of the businesses, as well as the managers, actually the owners or the industries, creators of the different parts of the infrastructure and services of the county?
You want that to be directed at everyone?
Everyone, yes.
There are actually, I'll take this, I'll start out with this question. There are actually developers here in Prince George's County who are smaller and who are just trying to get their foot in the door and who've been frankly closed down. I think there are a couple of things that we can do more directly. One is with county procurement, making sure that we begin to unbundle some of the contracts that are done in the county and that we give priority, like other jurisdictions do, to local contractors so that we can help grow businesses that are operating right here in Prince George's County. Central Services controls a lot of that, and I know we've had this discussion in other forums, and I think that there needs to be a complete revamp of our Central Services operations so that we have procurement officers who really are engaged in making sure that they can oversee multiple contracts so that we have more opportunity for participation by some of our local business. The other thing is that I think the 21st century economy is a creative economy. And so that means that we're going to have to focus on jobs in what I describe as our innovation corridor. It's anchored by Goddard Space Flight Center, where I used to work, to NOAA, our couple of universities, University of Maryland College Park, Bowie State University, University of Maryland University College, which is also producing a lot of people who have technology capacity, and we'll be able to grow and incentivize those businesses here in Prince George's County if we really fully invest in our innovation corridor. And I would say as well, looking at the ways in which we do development, where we say we're going to focus on developers that are here in Prince George's County, and we're going to make them prime on their projects so that they are the ones creating wealth and opportunity for those local subcontractors. And now we give so much priority to what comes from outside the county in. And I think that we should focus our development strategy on making certain that we're investing and empowering Prince George's County developers and contractors. I mean, I was talking with a guy who is the largest vending machine contractor here in the region, and he's located here in Prince George's County. He's got contracts in Prince William and Howard and Loudoun, but he can't get a contract here in Prince George's County, and that should not be. So we should be incentivizing local hiring, local contracting, and local development.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And there's one other that I'd like to mention. There really are some really great examples of the intergenerational wealth that was mentioned a moment ago. For example, there's a young developer. His name is Evan Charles. He is developing the hotel on 202. It's a Marriott hotel. It's a beautiful hotel. He's a young African-American developer who benefited from the county's EDI fund. The county broke ground on that particular project at the end of the year. And so we have examples like that one where the county's Economic Development Incentive Fund actually aided that young developer in beginning his hotel business here. Most of his partners are also young and African American. There are business owners like Nicole Ellison from the Ellison Group who are also growing their businesses here. I agree that we have to take the opportunity to develop many more of those kinds of business owners. The way we will do it is to simply use some of the legislation that we already have in place, including CB 115 that now has the requirement as of January 20th of this year that any contract that the county lets for $500,000 or more, now there is a requirement that that contractor actually subcontracts to another business so that we can grow capacity among smaller businesses and give other businesses an opportunity to subcontract and to eventually act as a prime on a contract. So we have to simply enforce the laws that we have in place, but also look for opportunities like the one with Evan Charles, who will be the new hotel owner, who also, I believe, has a percentage of a hotel in Washington, D.C., to make sure that we are assisting those businesses where we can with capital, that we're giving loans to them and other support from the government.
I like it. Can I add to that one? Here we go again, folks. Harriet Tubman said, and like I said, I got to speak the truth. She said, Harriet Tubman, and those that know who she is, she said that I could have saved more slaves if they only knew that they were slaves. Now, and when I talk about that, I'm not talking about individuals. This is collectively. I keep hearing again, we need to do this, or we can't do this. Let me tell you what I did. I was a trustee on Prince George's Community College. We were getting ready to build a health sciences building. I'm sitting in this meeting with all these white folks, and they're talking about $47 million. And my first question, because of my experience with National Harbor, how many black folks you got building that building? They looked at me like I was crazy. See, you've got to ask the questions that nobody asks. And from me asking that question, I said to them, we need to develop a system. I am tired of our black contractors being subcontractors. Why can't we make them the contractors? So what we created there, we said that in order to be high up on the totem pole of who we were going to pick to build that building, you will get more points if you are a prime contractor who brings on a black contractor as your partner, not as your sub. And as a result, that building was built by a black prime contractor in this county. Folks, this is the type of stuff I'm talking about. National Harbor. When those people started coming to me, the contractors, and told me they were losing the contracts and so forth from there on, I told you I threatened to sue the county because what Wayne Curry had put together in the Memorandum of Understanding, our county council, those people you keep electing because they're so popular, was making participations agreement that kept putting us out of that whole scene. And that's why I had to threaten to sue the county, because I said what Wayne put together, you cannot just arbitrarily change like that. How many of you know right now, based on that what I just showed you, that white paper I wrote, that they wrote a bill on, how many of you know that 2 hotels in National Harbor are now 50% owned by black people? How many of you know that 2 office buildings in National Harbor are 50% owned by black folks? I'm not talking about jobs, folks. I'm talking about wealth, as a young man said. We have to build wealth, but we have to control the wealth and the resources before we can control the wealth. This is the type of leader you need, and I'm passionate about that because I've been doing it. I'm not telling you what I'm going to do. I got practice at it. And it's simply because I don't take stuff off of people. I was born and raised in the projects. I seen my mother work hard to try to make things happen. So I don't take no for an answer. I don't owe them nothing. Like Donna said, we have the land. We have everything right here we need to build our community where we don't have to ask them for nothing. That's right. How is it that they can come into this county, build things, I don't care what they build, and then they give us jobs? I don't need a job. That's right.
So I'll say a couple things. One, we definitely need a chief procurement officer. A couple things. I would say we need a chief procurement officer in this county. The way this movie's been able to go on, I think, is because there hasn't been full transparency on how your money's being spent across all these different kingdoms the county runs in county government. There needs to be transparency about where that money's going, why that firm was the best taxpayer value that they got the work. I do think back to the education piece, we need to validate that as a pathway for our students, starting in middle school. Again, you have a vision for a company you want to start, a business you want to get going. That's time we can cultivate that idea and work with you so you're not just graduating with a piece of paper, but a business plan and maybe some financing to get started, because we have a structural deficit in this county. And we can't tax your house more to get out of it. That's usually the card we play. We can't play that card anymore. The only way out of this is to expand the commercial tax base by convincing companies this is a level playing field to do business. You don't have to have the hookup in Upper Marlboro to get in. And we've run, I mean, one of my biggest supporters, Kevin Swahili, he owns Swahili Village over in Beltsville. It took him months to even get his business license approved. We've run into so many people that had financing from the bank, but the county wouldn't get back to them. And so they're in this weird position of, we have money, but the county won't say yes and give me a green light. Time is money. So I think we need to build that educational track. And also, as President Trump isn't lying about reducing the federal workforce, that's gonna hurt us in a hard way. How many feds live in Prince George's County? As they push them to the doors, forced retirement or buyouts, those are our neighbors. We've got to talk about that and also see the opportunity that is. I think there's a mentoring opportunity. These are people sitting on a lifetime of experience that may be able to pour into that next generation. I think the question around intergenerational piece, the intergenerational piece is the right one, because this is an analogy one of my mentors uses all the time. A healthy forest isn't all old trees. It's susceptible to disease. A healthy forest doesn't want young trees either because of climate change. A healthy forest is trees of all ages. And I think we need to do a better job of putting these connections together, people with that wisdom, that lived experience, and the young people of this county that, again, they need the support. I was one of those young people. And the last piece I would say is just when it comes to immigrant communities. And maybe it's because my dad's Jamaican, or maybe it's just because I've lived here for 37 years. The firm that gets the county work, I don't care if you're purple. I don't care if you have an accent. And the way that we've run into so many immigrant-owned businesses that say, I stopped bidding, because it was made clear to me they didn't want my business. And I do think that whatever color people may be, this has to be a place, especially in the age of Trump. What kind of county are we going to be? Are we going to be the kind of county that says, well, that's not my problem because I'm not from there? He's coming for all, Hondurans, Haitians, Salvadorans, and Liberians now. Next year, their temporary protected status is gone. So the idea that either we hang together. Thank you.
Okay, yes. Has everyone answered that question? Okay, great. Come on, please, step up.
Good morning. My name is Marcus Anderson. I'm a student at our beloved Frederick Douglass High School. And it has been stated that education is important, and I very agree. So I wanted to, concerning that topic, I wanted to ask you your thoughts on, recently, a while ago, Black Lives Matter implemented their week of action in many of our schools. And it disturbed me because children as young as my 5-year-old sister were being taught that concepts such as homosexuality and transgenderism were normal. And it goes against many of our cultural and religious beliefs. And so I wanted to know what your thoughts on those concepts and what can we do to make sure that our young and innocent minds aren't attacked in this way again. Thank you.
Before y'all answer, we have a lot of questions and I'm sure of time. Is it okay if we cut the response down to 2 minutes? Okay with everybody?
Okay. Let's start with Ms. Edwards, please.
I believe here in Prince George's County, we should be a county that embraces people however it is that they come to us. Now, the question is, in school, what is age-appropriate education around issues of gender identity? And so I don't know what the curriculum provides for at age 5, but I would suspect that what you described is not what the curriculum provides for. Nonetheless, we have a county that comprises lots of people who have different identities. They have different identities when it comes to their gender identity, different identities when it comes to race and religion and all sorts of qualities. And I think that we have to make sure that at least in government that we're a county that embraces all of us and makes government and education work for all of our young people. And I would say I'd have to look specifically at what might be age appropriate at 5 versus what might be age appropriate in high school, and I suspect those things are very, very, very different things, and we should make sure that our school system accommodates helping young people understand the environment in which they live and the people that they live around.
Okay, I'm sorry, yes.
First of all, let me come back to a young man. is, no, I think there's some age appropriateness there, but let me go a little deeper. We are our community, and when I say community, Prince George's County is being deteriorated by such things as what's being taught. I think it's a deliberate tactic to try to further separate our family, to bring our families down, because that type of teaching, if it's going to be taught, needs to be taught in the home, and that's part of the whole community. When we talk about embracing everybody, and this is more on race, not on transgender. Folks, let me tell you something. Like I said, you may not like a lot of things I'm saying, but it's the truth. And I'm speaking truth to power. There are a lot of immigrants in this country. The Democratic Party won't even call illegal immigrants illegal. They call them undocumented. Yes, right. We are no longer the majority minority in Prince George's County. If you don't take control, now I'm not saying don't love them, but get your house in order first. Right. So that we can control even them. But right now, they're working on controlling us. And if you notice, they don't even collaborate with you. They don't even give you credit for the lynchings that took place. They don't give you credit for the castrations that took place. They're just slowly moving in on what you've already done. And they don't even collaborate with you on it. Okay? So what I'm saying, I have no problem with them. But let's get our house in order first. If we don't, then they take over there. And then the Democratic Party, these people you see up here, going to pander to them because they're the ones that's going to be the voting machine come time, because they're going to be the ones that the Democratic Party is going to give the welfare payments, going to give whatever is necessary for them to be here. Okay? And that's not against all of them. But I'm not talking about other people. I'm talking about us, folks. We got to get our house in order, and then from there we can help everybody. Right. But you can't help. We just love everybody. We just, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Mr. Monteiro.
Yeah, so I did see the article about the Black Lives Matter Week of Action. I'm not familiar with what the curriculum entailed, but from my time at the Justice Department, 2015, Jamar Clark was killed in Minneapolis. Black Lives Matter was very active there around because the man was in handcuffs when he was shot by the police. 4 months later, Philando Castile was shot on the other side of the Twin Cities, St. Anthony. So 2 cities right next door to you. This is the Twin Cities. And the Black Lives Matter chapter there said to the Minneapolis chapter, don't come over here. We don't want you. Because Black Lives Matter is an autonomous organization in the sense of they don't have an org chart and a president. When it comes to who speaks for Black Lives Matter, everybody has a voice. So I really do, think when we're talking about having a week of action in our public school system, I would really want to kick the tires on what is even being taught at a time where we were just talking to somebody from PEPCO again. PEPCO's a 6-figure job. They're trying to hire Prince George's County public school graduates. Problem is they have a physical and an 8th grade math test, and the passage rate is 25%. So I think it's a bit sort of, let's focus on the fundamentals before we get into issues of beyond reading, writing, and arithmetic, where those are the things I'm most focused on. Are our young people going to have agency when they graduate? Or are we just giving them a piece of paper to struggle out here in this very competitive market? So that's my answer to that.
Okay, Ms. Alsobrooks.
And I have to say that I am not familiar with the Black Lives Matter Week of Action that you're talking about, and in particular, I'm not aware of this particular situation. I'll just say 2 quick things about it. I agree that there are certain lessons that, first of all, ought to be age appropriate, and I think that there are certain discussions that should start at home, and that those discussions are best if they are at home in an environment where that family can pass along their values to their particular children. So that's what I'd say about it, but I'm not familiar with the week of action that you're talking about.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Yes, sir. Please state your name. Oh, yes, ma'am. Please state your name.
Hi, my name is Donna Dowdy, and I want to say thank you for allowing this forum also.
That's right.
Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
While I'm not a Prince George's County resident, I'm a DC native, and I still have my home in DC. But I have a strong influence on my family and friends who live in Prince George's County, and I have organizations in Prince George's County. Mm-hmm. And I have a strong, although I don't have children, I have a strong affinity to kids. With that, my question is kind of similar to this young man who was here earlier. And it's a 2-part question. And for the sake of time, and forgive me for being informal, I just want to address Paul and Angela. I understand you may not have the control, but you do have power. What kind of measures do you plan, if any, to put in place to retard child bullying, child safety in the school systems? I even thought of like maybe a metal detector at the doors. Yeah. Do you plan to do anything to retard or to galvanize safety in the schools? And also, do you plan to aid in any way with police brutality? Do you plan to write letters? Like I said, you may not have the authority, but you do have power. Do you propose to do anything on those two issues?
Before they answer, everybody has the right to answer the question.
Oh, okay. I was just, no, well.
No, okay.
Yeah, I was just wanting to save time, and these are two individuals I wanted to ask the question to. But all of you, of course, can answer. I mean,
okay.
I was.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All
We're
right.
here.
All right.
We're here. I'm concerned about these two right here.
You said a two-part question, right?
Yeah, and one was about the bullying.
Okay.
One was the bullying and safety in the school system, and the other one was police brutality.
Okay.
Okay. We can start with Paul.
Sure. Yeah. So this is when I ran the community relations service at the Justice Department. That was part of our mandate, was to address bullying and harassment in public schools. Our mandate was the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the 2009 Shepard-Byrd Hate Crimes Prevention Act that President Obama signed, named after James Byrd Jr., the black man dragged to death by white supremacists. So we would often go into school systems where you had patterns of bullying and harassment based on race, religion, and other things. And there are whole training modules and a service that DOJ provides when you see these troubling trends, because you can't let it go. And in some cases, unfortunately, the faculty allowed it to happen. And that's a broader issue. So that's something close to my heart, just because that's the work that I was committed to doing at the Justice Department around bullying. And when it comes to safety, absolutely. It's like one of those fundamental things like hunger. Like, there's no learning going on if I'm hungry, and there's definitely no learning going on if I'm just scared of what are you packing in your backpack right now. And I think it starts with minding our own rules. I mean, the county has a protocol that says you need to have clear backpacks so we know what's walking up in this building. We just kind of ignore it. And you need to make provision for the kid that maybe can't afford the clear backpack for sure, but I think it starts with like minding our own rules, setting an example of we don't tolerate any of this foolishness, and people need to feel safe. Where you have, I think, the active international criminal organization of like an MS-13 at work, which it is present in this place, that's where I do think you need to take a more harsher view about how do we enforce safety in this system, because this is not like your neighborhood gang. This is an international criminal organization. And they're up to a lot of terrible things. When it comes to policing, so last thing, metal detectors again. I would go where you have specific indications of some types of activity. I'm wary about saying a metal detector in every school. I do think it signals to young people. My brother was in one of the alternative schools. He got held back twice at Roosevelt, so they put him in the alternative school over on Bladesburg Road. It's baby jail. The building signals pat down metal and that. All right, I'm out of time. But on policing, can I just sneak policing in? I would just say there's a reason the Justice Department is looking at our police department again. The county's 65% black. The police department is only 44% black. So
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Ms. Alsobrooks.
So thank you for that question. See if it comes up. Okay, thank you so much for the question. Two very important issues. I'll start with the first question you were asking about child safety. I think obviously because of what's happening across the country, this is very important to our school system. I say two things about it. One is that we have to respond aggressively to any violence that occurs in the schools, because I think we have to send a message that it absolutely will not be tolerated. I think we have to really not tolerate any violence in our school. And so that's been one position that I've taken as state's attorney, is that when those cases have occurred, unlike non-violent offenses, but a violent offense in a school, I think ought to be handled aggressively. Now, having said that, one of the things that we've noticed across the country is the impact of mental illness. Many of these hurt people. And so we have all of these children running around our schools who have been injured themselves emotionally. So mental illness plays a huge part in the violence that we're seeing. So I think we respond when it happens. But from a preventive standpoint, the smartest thing we do is to make sure we have social workers in these schools so we can identify some of the children who are suffering and are able to deliver to them the care they need right away. But I think that's a huge issue. You've noticed that really there are always warning signs. There are these red flags. Most of them have to do with mental illness. The second question about police brutality, I started the special prosecution unit in my office as a prosecutor to make sure that we were handling specifically those cases of violence, and we prosecuted them when necessary. Two other things we're doing: implicit bias training. We have now partnered with the University of Maryland College Park to train these officers because education is important. And the other thing we have to do is to make sure they're physically fit. Officers who are fearful, who feel intimidated, respond with violence. So we have to make sure that we are not training officers who are afraid of the people they police, and that they are trained well to know the difference between a real threat and one that's just because you're too weak to follow up with it or to be able to defend it off. So training is important. Our police department's done an excellent job with this, both in physical fitness and training, and the implicit bias training has really been very helpful.
Thank you. I'll just add to that. I think I was in an elementary school last week, and a sixth grader asked me. She just came up to me privately, and she said, "What are you going to do to make me safe in school?" And she was in sixth grade. And I think that we have to answer that question. And I think one of the reasons that I focus so strongly on lowering class size as a marker for academic success, but it's also a way in which a teacher who's in a classroom has the ability to know what is going on with those young people. When you have a class, and this young lady, her class, I think there were something like 35 kids in the class, and it's tough for an educator in a classroom to be able to identify when there are specific problems or issues going on, to be able to intervene in those. And I mentioned earlier the way that we can incorporate and fund mental and behavioral health services in all of our 208 schools. And we have to do it through the insurance system. 90% of Prince George's families actually have health insurance. I actually, when I was in Congress, one of the provisions I got into the Affordable Care Act was to pay for mental health as a basic health care service. And so it's reimbursable, and we can use that system in order to make sure that we have those services fully available in the schools. And another young person also said to me, "My school feels like a jail." And so we don't want schools to feel like jails and prisons. We want them to feel like schools. And one of the ways that we can do that, lowering class size, expanding the number of educators that we have in the system, and then making sure that where it's appropriate, we have resource officers and law enforcement present. But Prince George's County is now locking up, has arrest rates for its young people in schools higher than you find any place else in the state. And so we can't criminalize ordinary aberrant behavior among young people.
And you can't lock up everybody. When I was growing up in the projects, there was this guy named Ronnie, and I used to have to pass by his house to get to the store. And Ronnie would sit up in the window with a BB gun. And my passage was a sugar sandwich. And you know what changed that? One day my two brothers came back home from Tennessee State, and they were playing on the basketball court, and Ronnie just started beating up on me. I was scared of Ronnie. I didn't know how good I was, though, until my brother said, either he's going to beat you or we going to beat you. Man, I waxed Ronnie. I never knew I was that good. What am I saying? Most of the bullying that takes place now takes place on the internet. The fact, you can't put all this on the teachers, folks. And, you know, mental illness is a big problem. Ronnie, I think something was wrong with Ronnie even back then. But he wasn't on pills. We have pilled our kids to death. And so what I'm saying, again, you parents you got to watch your kids. You got to see what's going on the internet. You know your kids better than anybody else. Stop giving up that precious commodity of yours. You know when they're down. You know when they're up. You need to find out what's going on. And like my brothers, you need to take charge and tell your kids, look, we're going to take care of this problem. Instead of putting my daughter teaches school. And some of the stories she tell me, folks, you know, it's amazing what parents don't do now. When my mother worked at night, my next door neighbor took care of us. I mean, we had a community, and we've got to get back to that. And I think if we take control of our community, a lot of that stuff will, especially with the mental health, we've got to get on that. Got to get on that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hold on, before you, we're gonna run over a little bit over the time where I originally told y'all. Is it possible we could finish with these last 4 people before y'all go on y'all close?
11 o'clock, let's go for it. I'm good to go.
Is it okay if these 4 people get their questions? Okay.
I'm gonna be. My name is Jeff Robertson, and I pride myself on being clear, concise, and to the point.
Oh, great.
So this is a simple question that requires a simple answer. Okay. So my question is the Trails Master Plan. Everybody up there knows what biking trails do for a community. I mean, you look at Virginia. I ride them all the time. So my question is, in the Trails Master Plan, will you support, yes or no, the $100,000 for the Central Avenue connector between DC and Largo Town Center? That is a yes or no. It's already in. It's already on the board. $100,000 for the connector that's in the Trails Master Plan from the Central Avenue connector that goes from Capitol Heights over to the Largo Town Center.
That's all you want?
For this question, if you just stay with the question, yes, that's all I want.
Okay.
And you're right. I want to know, will you support it? Because we know, everybody up there knows what biking trails do to the community. Look at what they did in D.C.
Yes.
Look what they do in Virginia.
Yes.
I ride them all the time,
Yes.
6 days a week. We know that.
Thank you.
But this here is very important, so yes or no?
Yes.
Thank you. Go ahead. Your answer is yes?
Yes.
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 Yes, but
Okay.
you want to.
Oh no, you can say more. You can say more. I just want to make sure you
I do
say it.
because
Yeah, you can say more.
because I'm a bicyclist.
Right. So am I. No.
And I ride the pathway that we put in our lawsuit against the developer at National Harbor resulted in a bike path that runs all the way across the river to Alexandria. And I ride sometimes to Mount Vernon on that trail that we got because of the protests that we lodged. Along Oxon Hill Road, a bike path along Oxon Hill Road that connects down to the Henson Creek Trail, and then I'd love to extend that over to Fort Washington. I ride that path all the time, and I used to commute on my bike. And we have to make we lose people to injury, etc., because we don't have biking paths that are adequate and appropriate. And then lastly, I would say you are so right. These trails actually build communities and strengthen communities. They're an amenity to the community, and then it allows other things to be built around it. And so that's a long yes.
Thank you.
Okay, great.
Peace and blessings, family. My name is Wasita. I stand before you. I'm a veteran of the United States Air Force. Also, I am the founder of a grassroots nonprofit organization, Sisters United, SISTAS United, Inc. And I stand before you for a couple of things. First of all, the military, I was always taught, if I come to you with an issue, I'm also going to bring to you possible solutions. So I don't want you to think you in this by yourself. First of all, I want to tell you this, that grassroots, you guys do not understand the power of grassroots. For those who are in the building right now that don't really understand power of grassroots, first of all, my organization has been going for 20 years. 20 years. I started it right after the real Million Women's March back in 1997. And what I mean by this is I'm doing this now for 20 years with no grant, okay? With no grant. And with that said, I have found, being a Prince George's County resident for over 35 years. Now with grassroots, these are the things that we do. We work with passion, not a paycheck. We're the ones, when stuff happens after the 9 to 5, for many people, they'll do the humanitarian work from 9 to 5 as long as they get that paycheck. When the paycheck stops, so does their service. It's not like that with grassroots, okay? I'm right here in Central Avenue, Old Central Avenue. There's many times the former police chief has contacted me 9:30, 10 at night when his own officers needed help. And I would open up my food pantry 10 o'clock at night and feed these brothers and also pray with them. Also, just the past 2 weeks, I don't know what's going on with domestic violence in Prince George's County, but it's Grassroots. We have made sure 2 sisters in the past 2 weeks have gotten safe housing, clothing, food, diapers, formula, all after hours. It's your Grassroots. When at Central Avenue, when the Safeway closed down the street here, the very next week, I opened up my pantry to dedicate it to the people who are suffering from the food desert. In that one night, 186 families came through. Did I keep saying that I don't have a grant? So what I'm saying to you is this, the power of Grassroots. If you would connect with Grassroots. Now, I know the county council have a certain amount of money that they can give out, but I'm not finding it going to Grassroots. Grassroots, most of us have full-time jobs. We can't write a grant, nor do we have the money to pay people to write a grant. So my solution to you is create a task force dedicated to helping pro bono Grassroots. We don't need county money. Go after the federal money. Go after some of the foundation money. So what I'm saying to you is you have the power. We can make a difference. We can take care of our own problems. I am living proof, 20 years with no grant, feeding people. Also, let's talk about feeding people. How about our senior citizens? What's in the county for the senior citizens? I'm going to tell you what I've done in the past 2 years. I run a program in D.C. where the seniors come to me every month. Get 40-pound box of food, your welfare cheese, fresh produce, even on their birthday, get a cake. I took that same program and went to the current officials in Prince George's County and nothing. And did I say that those people that come to me every month to get food, everything is free? I had 6-week cooking courses right down the street here that people could come for free. They got food at the end of every class. And we took them to the grocery store to show them how to shop. Did I mention that that's all free, Grassroots style? So the question is, what is your plan? What is your plan to connect with Grassroots now that I've told you what Grassroots is and what we can do? Do you have a plan to take care of your Grassroots nonprofits here in Prince George's County?
I'll jump in there. Well, thank you for everything that you do. God bless you for that, and your service in the Air Force. That's the work I did as the head of AmeriCorps Vista. You know, because usually small nonprofit grassroots organizations, when they apply for federal grants, they're never going to get it because you're competing against the big dogs, the Catholic Charities, Lutheran Services. Vista exists for the grassroots organization. It's been around for 50 years, and it works sort of. The problem with a grassroots nonprofit is you have 2 staff. You have a budget of $10,000 or very small budget, very small staff. So you max out really fast. And what we do is we say, here's a grant writer. Here's a volunteer recruiter. Here's someone to mobilize, you know, or a cash or in-kind donation campaign to get more resources in here over the course of 3 years because you have no dollars to spare, no people to spare. But it's your vision. That's the problem a lot of federal programs came into is they said, here's the solution to your problem in a local community, not knowing what's going on in your local community. Run with our vision. So Vista works with your vision. We scale your vision over 3 years. And it's a discretionary grant. So I had a $93 million budget, and if I saw a nonprofit I wanted to fund, I could. So I encourage you to look at Vista. And half of what I'm looking at, I stole from traveling the country, looking at these very dynamic, innovative, grassroots nonprofits that are actually doing the work. They called it the nonprofit industrial complex up in Baltimore because you had all these like big flashy nonprofits with fancy annual reports, but the money never seemed to get to Freddie Gray's neighborhood. And so you have to go to the people that are doing the work. And my vision is to say, how do we tap into that federal money? Because I know it's there because I ran the program, but also get those resources. We need a faith-based office as well for the faith-based and nonprofit organization because last I checked, we're not short on those types of organizations. But the county has kind of left it to, again, the big dogs, you know, the major congregations to do it. God bless them. I'm just saying the challenges we have on hunger, homelessness, supporting our veterans, youth, you know, after school programs. It's going to take all hands on deck. And so the county should really put up the bat signal and give resources to say this is how we're going to align and work together.
Mr. Mathis.
Okay. Well, thank you for your service. I am also a disabled veteran. Y'all, I guess y'all say, how you do all that? Is it telling the truth? Yeah, I'm 82nd Airborne Division, over 100 jumps out of airplanes, and the highest designation that a paratrooper can get, a jump master. So, and I'm a disabled veteran. Nonprofits. I was on the Central Prince George's County Development Corporation this time appointed by the county council for the $500,000 a year that we were getting from the stadium. Some of y'all don't know that we were getting $500,000 from the stadium. Wayne Curry again. He makes sure that those things happen. Now, we were tasked with divvying up the money among nonprofits. And to answer your question, it wasn't even the $500,000. By the time you get 300 nonprofits wanting to get $20,000, $30,000, so we had to find out who was doing what. And believe me, we made sure that the people that were doing the most as a nonprofit. But that doesn't answer your question. With all the money that comes into this county, let's take that $2 million a year that now you're paying for 2 more at-large county council people. They tricked you on that one. The 9 you got don't do anything and getting paid. We could have took that $2 million and that money, instead of paying them to have a job, was for county car. One of them with 46 tickets. The other one had an accident, 2 accidents with county cars. That's what's the problem. The money is not directed. You need a person like me when one of these comes against me that understands that. And one of the problems, like I say, you don't know what you don't know. And people give you all this great talk, but you gotta know what you don't know. And I've been in the back rooms, folks, in the Democratic Party. I've seen the talk. I've watched the policymakers. I know what I know. Thank you, ma'am.
All right, great. Ms. Evans.
Thank you very much for your service, but also thank you for your continued contribution to the community. My dad was nearly 30 years in the United States Air Force. It's how I learned service. You know, I actually spent most of my time after law school running nonprofit organizations, founding them, and running philanthropic organizations. I started a group called the National Network to End Domestic Violence. Today, we're the largest network of anti-domestic violence organizations in the country, but we started out with 10 women, including myself, each giving $100 to open a bank account with $1,000. I grew that nonprofit organization into the organization that it is today, and then we worked to pass the Violence Against Women Act of 1994. I spent time in my community running a group called the Campaign to Reinvest in the Heart of Oxon Hill. That's what we wanted to do. And Jerry knows that is the work that we did as volunteers to make sure that the development that was happening around our community really reflected what we wanted in the community. And we basically ran on a shoestring. We really didn't have any money. We made signs and posters and organized in my living room, as a matter of fact. But I believe in the nonprofit sector. When I was in Congress, I actually put money every year to organize things like how to build your board, how to do marketing, how to apply for philanthropic grants from foundations, those kind of things to build, grow, and strengthen nonprofits. And I believe when I'm county executive, I am going to create a nonprofit coordinating office through the Office of County Executive, because we have over 4,000 nonprofit organizations in the county that are operating below $25,000, and that's a stretch for many of them. And so we have to teach things like collaboration and go after those large grants and really leverage what we're doing here in the county. And I've spent 20 years doing it. I'll do it as county executive.
Ms. Alsobrooks.
So I too want to echo, thank you so much, Rosita, for your service. Thank you for the service in the military, and also not just your service, but your passion. I appreciate the passion that you have for people. And I want to say that I agree with you that we need much more work in terms of building out our nonprofit sector. What we understand now is that the government cannot do it all. We have so many needs in our community that go unaddressed every day. That includes not only homelessness. We have so many issues around our youth. Reentry is an area that we've done very little with. When we think about domestic violence, there are so many issues every day in our community that have gone unaddressed, and a lot of it is because we have not built capacity beyond government. So I believe we have an opportunity going forward. That opportunity is to make sure that we are making the investment in nonprofit organizations and that we are coordinating much better the efforts of nonprofit organizations. I agree that we ought to coordinate that from the county executive's office, but I think we ought to do so in partnership with the Prince George's Community Foundation, for example, which I think does a wonderful job of coordinating now some of our nonprofits, but they need much more assistance in terms of grant writing to make sure that we're applying for grant funding, as you mentioned, from the federal government, but also from the state government. One of the reasons that we see so much help going to Baltimore City, for example, is because Baltimore City says we need help. Prince George's County has been in a situation, we have not because we ask not, so we have to do a much better job of asking the state for that assistance, applying for those grants, but then coordinating it on the county side to make sure that we are helping to deliver services to people, and that we're working with people like you and so many other organizations in our county that deliver those services every day without the support that they need. So we'll work more closely with you and people like you, organizations like yours, to make sure we're delivering services to the people in our county who desperately need them but have not had them over the years. Thank you.
Thank you, young man.
Hello. My name is Antoine, and I'm a 6th grader, and I attend Prince George's County Public Schools. Over the past few months and weeks, we've seen many school shootings, and I would like to know your plans on securing schools and making schools a better place.
Thank you. All right, thank you. Let's start. Okay, let's start with that. Yes, sir.
Thank you for the question, young man. Again, some of that happens in the home. These guns are being brought to the school from the home. And it incenses me that parents don't know that the kids got some issues and leave the guns unlocked, and that gun is brought to the school. So again, you can put all the metal detectors, you can put the police. Now this thing about the teachers carrying guns, no. Look, I'm a trained military man. I can shoot you from a long ways away. But that's not what I want my daughter to do. She teaches right here in Prince George's County. But to answer your question, young man, you should not even have to think about those things. I think as a county executive, we would look more into how can we support the family? How can we get, when we talk about getting the guns off the street, that's not an easy task, because a lot of the guns are coming from DC, coming from Mexico, and what have you. What we have to do is catch them before they get here and try to give some type of education. I mean, there's no panacea. There's no one question that's going to answer, that's going to take care of this. But we have to start somewhere by building our community, starting with the family. What is it that your parents, where is that gun? Is it in the drawer? How many times have you noticed your kid is having problems? Because if the kid knows where your gun is, they're going to take to school because that's the best place that they can. A lot of them want to die right there when they kill somebody. They don't expect to be put in jail. Right. They're trying to terminate their lives, and the way they're doing it, they're going to take somebody with them to put a magnifying glass on the problem. So, son, we are going to work on that as county executive. It's going to be one of my priorities, is making sure that the kids are well taken care of and don't have to go to school worrying whether they're going to come home that evening.
Okay, great. Brother Paul?
Yeah, no, I would agree with Jerry in that you shouldn't have to worry about it, but it's a fact of life in America in 2018. This is going on. There's too many examples in the news of it. And that's a fundamental thing. If you don't feel safe, how much really are you able to learn? I would start with, again, the mental health issues. A lot of these shootings are tied to things that weren't addressed early, supports that were not in place. I do think that, again, back to the piece of you do have active, when it comes to gang issues or folks that are engaged in criminal activity, there can't be any space for that. That's where you do need to be tough on making it clear this is a gun-free zone in terms of these schools, and do whatever you need to do to make sure that happens. I do think that the push for definitely armed teachers or even school resource officers that are armed, there's plenty of data to say that doesn't make us safer. If anything, there's a report just in the last couple of days that now insurance companies won't insure school systems that do that because they see the liability and the probability of something going sideways when you start arming civilians or that are educators, not security experts. So I don't think there's a single answer to the question, but I think it does start with saying what other supports can we put in place to identify the signs early, even mental health first aid training so that people know the signs and know the pathways to address it without embarrassing or shaming or diming out, but knowing the pathways and who to hand off for different inquiries where you're not clear about something to make sure people get addressed. To ignore it and just say it'll work itself out. I mean, we've seen too many examples of it not working itself out.
Ms. Alsobrooks.
So Antoine, I want to thank you for your question, and thank you for your courage in coming up to ask your question as well. And I have to tell you that your safety and security and well-being is my top priority. Making sure that you are not only physically safe in your school, but that you feel safe also, that you are emotionally well, and that everything about your experience is taken care of. Part of what I'll do is to make sure that you are actually safe. In other words, one of the things we've done over the last several years is to return Prince George's County police officers to our school. We have removed them from many of our schools and replaced them with sheriff's deputies. We have gone back to the practice of actually having Prince George's County police officers present in the schools. I think this is very important to have well-trained individuals who are responsible for the safety and security of our children. So I'll make sure that we have well-trained people in your school, not only police where that's appropriate, but making sure that the other officers who are there are well-trained and know how to respond in the event that something occurs. The other thing we'll do is to continue to remove guns from our streets. We'll do that with our police because there are too many of your peers have guns in their hands, and so we'll be much more aggressive about making sure that we're doing that, as well as making sure that one of the things I think is really important is conflict resolution. Because of the prevalence of social media, kids today just don't know how to solve their problems. They resort to violence so much more quickly than they used to. So making sure that actual conflict resolution is a part of the curriculum in our schools, and that every child has access to that curriculum, I think is going to be really, really important. We know now that our kids resort to violence much too quickly. One of the things I'd like to return to schools is something that you know nothing about. There used to be a program when I was a kid called Officer Friendly, which was an officer in the school who developed a rapport with children in that school, and those kids could come to Officer Friendly when he or she had a problem, talk to Officer Friendly, and I think we could really avert a lot of the problems we're seeing if we just return Officer Friendly to our schools, and I'd like to return the Officer Friendly program to Prince George's County schools.
Thank you.
Antoine, thank you very much for your question. You know, again, the wisdom of a sixth grader who recognizes and is concerned about, you know, your safety in school. You know, we are fortunate in Prince George's County that we haven't seen a Parkland or a Santa Fe high school, but it doesn't mean that we couldn't. And so I understand your concern, and I'm sure that concern is shared by parents all across our county. When I visited prisons and jails a lot when I was in Congress, because I was working on things dealing with reentry and also with programs that were happening inside of our prisons and jails. And when I would visit, I remember particularly a visit to the Cheltenham Youth Facility, and I asked a group of students, young people who were there, how many of them grew up in a home where they were experiencing domestic violence. And almost every single hand went up. And so that tells me that we have to start looking at some of the root causes of what's happening that's making violence more of a norm than it should be. But also we need to look inside the schools and ask ourselves, what is it that we're doing internal to the schools? And I echo some of the ideas that have come up on this panel. But I also think that we have to look at how it is that young people are entering schools and where it is that they're going when they leave, as a marker for trying to encourage, trying to find out what's going on with them. And then lastly, I would say that the key for me is, again, going back to this idea of trying to reduce our class sizes so that our educators and people and our administrators in school have some better idea of what's going on with individual students, so that when people are experiencing a problem, they're not just sitting in the back of the classroom allowing it to fester.
Great, thank you all very much, and you all have all answered that question, correct? So we'll take the last. Please state your name first.
My name is Sylvia Johnson, and I have two questions, two short questions. The first is regarding food deserts in Prince George's County. You're right, we live in a very wealthy county, but we also live in a very unhealthy county. And our food options are very limited. I travel for good food, like I travel here, I travel College Park, for good food. I even travel to DC for good food. For example, on Annapolis Road, we have so many grocery stores. And when I hear about food deserts, we have a Giant, we have a Safeway, we have a Mom's, we have an Aldi's, we have a Harris Teeter, and we're about to get a new grocery store. And this is all within 10 minutes of each other. So what is the criteria for putting in food establishments, grocery stores? We are overrun in my area with grocery stores, but yet others have none. So that's the first question. The second is I'm a business owner, and I run a successful company. But my company, I live in Prince George's, but my company is headquartered in Baltimore. I am sick and tired of driving from my home, I'm going to be honest, to Baltimore. But Baltimore makes it very convenient and very attractive to have a company there. Location is very important. I've been encouraged by some of my business mentors. Nicole, you just mentioned, is one of my business mentors who are encouraging me to move my headquarters back to Prince George's County. I was out a couple of weeks ago touring office facilities, did not like what I saw. So as a business owner, I need to know what the new county executive is going to do to, first of all, attract me and other business owners back to the county and retain us, because our dollars matter. We employ people. So those are my two questions.
All right, great. Let's start with Brother Paul.
Sure. Yeah, the food desert piece is, starting with that, I think a couple of things. Yeah, because I was just at Senator Benson's Route 450 meeting, and she was saying, you know, the glut of grocery stores here and then the dearth on the other side. And part of the answer the grocers were saying is the loss rate. I don't buy that, but they were saying they were dealing with a lot of lost inventory from theft, which I don't buy, but that's the argument anyway. At the end of the day, we have to make this place, you know, competitive for all businesses to come back, and we need to chase these grocers because the hunger rates are startling. But in the meantime, I think there are things we can do. Again, I'm stealing what Denver does on school hunger. They have a backpack program. Faith-based organization partners with the school because that weekend is tough for the kid that doesn't eat, or that 3-day weekend, or that, you know, spring break. There are things you can do in the interim to deal with it. And then when I was the head of AmeriCorps, there were digital food banks, online food banks to help with seniors that are homebound or can't take a couple buses to get to the grocery store, to help them order online and then have delivery, so they don't even have to leave their house. These are short-term, I think, but you know, a day without food is a long time, right? So the long-term strategy needs to be getting these grocers to see these are clients that need to be served and making a good deal, not one that gives away the store, but a good deal that says we need you to anchor back in this county. It's good to see Giant coming back to Prince George's County and after they moved away a couple of decades ago. And then on the business owner front too, I mean, so many of the folks we run into, again, they're in this weird position of, I'm trying to do business here. The county won't even call me back because I don't have the hookup. They don't know me. I don't know anyone. And setting a level playing field where it says, we're chasing you, business owner. We need you to set up here because of the structural deficit. The only way out of that hole is to convince more companies to set up shop here. And the fact that Amazon skipped us should be a red flag to everybody. Where we have the most undeveloped land, the lowest property values, the most metro stations, proximity to DC, they said no thanks. And I think at least part of it is because there is that unlevel playing field. And the answer to the question depends on who you are. Do I know you or do you have the connection?
All right. Ms. Edwards?
I'm so curious to know the business that you're in. Let's see where you went. There you are. To know the business that you're in, because I do think that in the county we have to really incentivize business to come and locate here in places that we want them to go. And I would say, despite the fact that we do have all of this available land and we have the transportation infrastructure, we actually haven't built really around that transportation infrastructure to make it attractive, not just for you as a business owner, but also for your employees who might want to live and work and play around where they live and work and play. And I think for Prince George's County, in terms of the food deserts, I mean, we enabled zoning and planning to be able to allow 7 grocery stores to locate within 10 miles. Guess what? We actually don't have to do that. We could provide incentives to locate in other places. I saw a mom who was walking her looked to be about a 3 or 4-year-old from a McDonald's around dinner time. And along that stretch of MLK Highway, there was no grocery store. And so she wasn't just feeding her child McDonald's because she necessarily wanted to. Where else in the world was she going to go? The county also could do a better job of making sure that we have farmers markets located in places throughout the county. The food bank, again, we have a lot of really, I love the food bank, but we have a lot of unhealthy food in that food bank that we're then pouring into our communities. And so we have to have healthy options for those kinds of services as well. And then making sure that our young people have the ability to have breakfast, lunch, and sometimes dinner at their schools to make sure that they're at least getting the kind of nutritional value that they need. But the placement of those grocery stores is about zoning and planning.
Great. Ms. Alsobrooks.
So I agree that the large issue with the food deserts is the planning. It's been the zoning and planning. But the other thing that we haven't done is to make sure that we're working with local communities to make sure that we're delivering to each community what that community needs. In other words, not a one-size-fits-all sort of approach, but we need to have, first of all, people who are experts in economic development so that the plan makes sense. But we have to work with municipal leaders. I've talked to many of them in our local municipalities who say to us, we have not been at the table when these decisions have been made, and we know best what the people in our community needs. And in this case, for example, what you're saying is you don't need another grocery. There's some other need and amenity that you need in your community. Maybe it's a gym, maybe it's some other shopping opportunity, but we need to make sure that we're considering each individual community, working with the municipal leaders in that community to make sure that when we put together the economic development strategy, that it considers the needs of each community. And again, revitalizing and redeveloping, not always fresh development, but making sure that we're looking at the areas we're having and redeveloping and revitalizing those areas in a way that makes sense and benefits the people who live in those communities. Because what you experience is not true in all areas of the county. I think about the Camp Springs area, the Fort Washington, and the southern parts of the county where they have virtually no grocers. All of these residents and no grocers, and so it's really an inconsistent pattern that we're seeing, but it means that we have to take more care. I think the other question that you were asking about in addition to economic development is the business climate, making sure that we are more, that there's certainty to our processes and that we have people who understand customer service. Also, the Jobs First Act means that we're able to incentivize new business owners to come back here through a trained workforce that the government invests in, meaning that we work with the community college, the University of Maryland, also in Bowie State to make sure we deliver to you not only business practices that make sense for you and don't cost you money, but that we have a workforce that is trained and prepared to be of benefit to you, a business owner who brings your business here.
Great. Ms. Mathis.
I believe you said 7 grocery stores. What about the 10 churches and the 12 liquor stores, all in one area? That happens to be your elected officials, folks. As I said, I was on Commission 2000 where we charted the growth. If you allow that to happen, if every time a business goes under, a church takes over, that's taxes that you're no longer getting. I'm a Republican. I've been a Democrat for 47 years. And the only reason why I changed to a Republican a year ago was because I got tired of the coronation of Democrats after they win the primary through trickery and deceit. There's no general election because you had 2 Republican governors who were the most small business friendly governors that you've ever had. And Hogan is one of them. Not that I want to give him my time here, but it's not about politics. It's about policy and people. All politics are local. So therefore, the way we create an incentive for our small, because you're right, if you don't do it from a government standpoint, that's from the state down to the county. But if you control your resources in the county, you can dictate to the state, whereby there are incentives. If you can incentivize 2 people that are currently on the county council who put in a bill that wasn't sunsetted so they can continue at $1.1 million over a period of year, that money could be incentivizing small business. Also, as I was on the board of trustees at the college, we came up with a program to teach small businesses and partner them with the larger businesses so that they can learn Because some of the small business doesn't have capacity in terms of how to. I started my business on a shoestring. I didn't know what I was doing, never been in business before. Thank God I was successful. But the point was, I didn't have anybody tell me how to do it, or what to do, or set up a system that I could be matriculated into. So that's my answer.
Great. We're going to allow each of the candidates to make closing remarks, and that's going to be 3 minutes apiece. And before we do so, I just want to thank all of you all for taking this time to be here with us. And I know you all need to get to where you got to go, but we appreciate you coming out tonight and making this important to you and making them see how important it is to you. So now, I don't know where to start, because every person I start with looks at me like, why me again? All right, Brother Mathis.
Okay, all right. Folks, all politics are local, okay? I think Donald Trump is exactly what you think he is. He's a misogynist, but it's local. And the reason why I'm a Republican, and when I say it to even people I know, people who know what I've done, and that brainwashing, they get, oh no. But folks, what I'm doing, I have known in my travels in this county, when the primary, Democratic primary was over, politicians, elected officials went on vacation. They never had to worry about the general election. What I want to do is create competition. Every question that you have asked tonight, competition will take care of it. Because now when there's competition, they got to bid for your dollars. Right now, we have no benefits for our dollars. So what I want you to understand, this Republican that you see in front of you is only a Republican, so I can further help you all. So I can, get into a system that makes the Democratic Party work instead of going on vacation. I promise you that what you see here tonight, I've been out there a long time fighting for you. As a businessman, I've gotten bills through. I stopped the stadium from being up here on Morgan Boulevard. I had to go down to the state delegation, because when you saw in the paper Jack Johnson, Senator Muse, all our county council with the DC United hats on, I said, no. I said, do you understand what it's going to cost the taxpayer dollar for that? The fact that we were going to publicly finance that stadium, and if it went down, we were getting no benefit from it. So I had to go to the white folks in Annapolis, who was putting up 82 million of the 196 million, to tell them, teach our black folks how to deal with money. Don't let them do this. You got money involved in it. I didn't like having to do that, folks. But they had to put it back to the council. And they turned down the bill to build that stadium. And folks, because the people that came down there in the buses didn't come from Prince George's County. They came from Montgomery County. We've got to take control of our resources. Stop giving it away. Now, I can't do it for you forever. I'm not going to do it no more unless I get the county exec. And the only reason why I'm going to county exec is I tried every other way to get y'all to listen and to get things done. But I mean what I say, and I say what I mean, and I have a plan. I can't talk about it every time you ask me a question. But my plan involves bringing the community back together of black folks, us taking charge, becoming self-sufficient, empowering ourselves to be powerful people that we are. You're educated. You make money. Let's take that and build something. Jerry Mathis, thank you so much, and I applaud you for being here tonight.
Ms. Edwards.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Baruch, and to all of you for being here this evening. I appreciate the time that we've been able to spend together. When I think about Prince George's County, I think of our nearly 1 million people who live, work, and play here in Prince George's County. And the fact that probably 20% of them are people who were born someplace else other than the United States, and they make up the great fabric of this county. During my time in Congress, 8.5 years, I lived I closed over 80,000 cases for veterans, for Social Security recipients, for children, for Medicare recipients, for people who are losing their homes. I I was the first member of Congress to hold programs to help save people's homes from foreclosure at a time when the foreclosure crisis had overwhelmed Prince George's County. I delivered after-school suppers to Prince George's County students. Children who receive breakfast and lunch can also now receive supper in their schools and programs because of legislation that I passed. I delivered for you when it came to health care to hold insurers accountable for their unconscionable rate increases. I delivered that. I delivered funding for the bus system here in Prince George's County at a time we needed additional buses to be added into that system. We need to make it even more robust. I delivered for our historically black colleges and universities. The reason that Bowie State University can take advantage of new fellowship programs is because of legislation that I delivered. I conducted college fairs during my time in Congress, seeing over 10,000 students with a pathway to college and to their careers. For nonprofits, for small businesses, programs for minority businesses, for women-owned businesses here in Prince George's County. STEM programs for our young people I delivered every single year that I was in Congress. I delivered for you, I will deliver for you as county executive, building on what I believe is an important program for innovation, for smart development, for an education system that works for all of our children, and for accountability and transparency in government. I really appreciate the time that we've been able to spend here this evening. I look forward to continuing to serve in Prince George's County, my home that I called home for over 35 years. I came here as a military brat, but I'm here vested in this community for the duration, and I look forward to continuing to deliver for you. Thank you very much.
And I want to thank all of you all for spending your evening with us tonight on a holiday to talk about the future of Prince George's County. This is my home. As I started out saying, I was born and raised here. This is my hometown. I could not be any more proud of the county that we all call home. Over the last several years, starting back in 2010 when I came before you, I came to ask you for the opportunity for you to trust me with one of the most important functions of our county, and that is to keep you and your family safe. I promised you at that time that I would oversee a criminal justice system that worked for you and not against you, and promised that I would not do it on the backs of our children. I promised you that I would have the good sense to know when to lock up and when to lift up a young person, and that's exactly what we have done. So 7.5 years later, we are now at a system where we have decreased crime by 50% in the last 7.5 years. Violent crime has gone down. We are also at the lowest crime rate we have seen since the 1980s in Prince George's County. But we are not done in Prince George's County. What we know now is that we must improve the performance and the reputation of our school system. When we do that, your property values will increase. The business investment will also increase. Our children will have the opportunities that they deserve. It is the sacred obligation that we have to every child in this community is to deliver to them the education that they deserve. That is exactly what we will do. We will also make sure that we are increasing the commercial tax base in this county, because you pay the second highest tax rate in the state of Maryland, because we have on the backs of citizens paid for everything we need. 70% of the tax revenues in Prince George's County are residential taxes. Only 30% are commercial and business taxes. We must increase opportunities for small, local, and minority business owners to make sure that we are not only growing the economy and creating jobs and hope in this community, but making sure that we are eliminating those food deserts we talked about tonight, so that you and your family members have an opportunity to have healthy foods delivered to you in the communities where you live, that you have shopping opportunities as well, and that we're taking care of our seniors, affordable housing, making sure they are not pushed out of their homes, making sure that they feel safe and that they're able to have the transportation that they deserve. What we know is that the best is yet to come in Prince George's. We have challenges like every jurisdiction, but I believe that we have every resource we need in Prince George's County to deliver to our citizens what they need. The Washington Post endorsed me. I am so proud that I received that endorsement this weekend. And what they said about me is that the reason for that endorsement was that I am fearless, far-sighted, accountable, and ethical, and that I had turned around an office that was a failing office in Prince George's that we have delivered to Prince George's County, a state's attorney's office that is now one of the best and brightest in the state of Maryland. We will never settle for anything less. We'll make sure that as county executive, I operate a government that you deserve, one that is ethical and transparent and that delivers for you what you pay for as taxpayers, and that your families have a seat at the table in Prince George's County, and that we are able to enjoy together the American dream that promises us opportunities if we're willing to work for them. And guess what? We will work for them together. Thank you so much.
Well, yeah, I got to start by thanking you, Dr. Baruch, for hosting, and thank everyone for giving part of your Memorial Day to be here. When I was often tell the story of when I was in 5th grade in 1990 at Delphi Elementary School, learning what furlough meant, getting the letter home asking for paper donations, being in one of 3 temporary trailers. There are 10 outside of Delphi Elementary School today. Some of these issues have been with us for decades. And the school system that is now only grown in terms of its share of our budget, now over 60% of the budget is going to the school system. I talked about 2018 not being a regular year because it's not a regular year. This is the year the bill is due. And if we continue to do the things we've always done and expect a different result, that's not a good hope. I see it now at Howard. I always talk about the stats. We admitted the biggest freshman class at Howard in 150 years last August. 2,200 freshmen. 73% of the class is women, which is something to celebrate because women haven't been welcome at college all the time. But the next natural question is, where are the boys? And we know from the data we're not losing them to Harvard. We're losing them to unemployment, their mother's couch, underemployment, or worse outcomes, criminal justice system or others. And so you have to start with saying, with education, we have to give our young people a pathway of opportunity to college or career. Stop saying college is everything, because it's not. You have to talk about, again, that culture here that chases companies away because they don't believe that it's a fair shot. You have to have the hookup. You have to know someone. You have to have the special phone number for them to even get back to you. And that's the only way out of the structural deficit we're facing. With restorative justice, we can't keep throwing people away because they caught a charge. Like my brother, one of my brothers caught first charge at 18, second at 21. Couldn't get a job at McDonald's until Local 5 picked him up, apprenticeship program. And we have this growing universe of our neighbors. They've been accountable for their mistakes. Give them a pathway back. And the broader culture of stewardship. This is something, again, across county government. You see it in large ways and small ways, the grass on the median, the 311 calls that are not returned, the emails you just never hear back on, the bids you put in that just crickets in return. That's been with us for far too long. And I'm not running as the answer man. I'm 37 years old. I'm not saying elect me, I'm going to fix it for you. I'm running to say to you, the 1 out of 5 that actually vote, but to those 4 out of 5 that are registered Democrats. They care about our country. This is the year to step up and take your voice back, because it's your money we're spending. These are your government jobs that we're giving out, in some cases, to people that shouldn't have them, and not holding people accountable. We need transparency in the system. We need an inspector general for the public school system. We need a chief procurement officer for our procurement office and Office of Central Services to finally show you where your money's going. Because if we just assume that things are going to get better on their own, what is probably likely going to happen is some people that are doing very well will do even better. But the inside the Beltway, Ward 9, whatever you want to call it, these are our neighbors. We can't leave them behind. They're our neighbors too. Paul for PrinceGeorge's.com. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Let's put our hands together. Once again, I want to thank all the candidates for Prince George's County Council, County Executive, and councils too. But it's been a challenge, in running a business while at the same time running this event and managing a child care development center here in the back that just sprung up. But I thank you all for your patience, and I thank you all for your patience. And we're very honored that you all would be here. Please don't make it your last time. And we're here. We're going to be here. We own the joint, so you don't have to run out if it's one of those hotels. They like to rush you out. But you all can hang out. You all can meet with your candidate if your candidate is available. And please, again, don't be a stranger. Thank you all very much. Get home safe.